Welcome, everyone, to the second installment of Extravaganza. I'm your host today, Adrian, product specialist from RME. And with me is no other than Derek Badala from RME USA. Hey, Derek,
Hello.
how you doing?
Good. How you doing?
Wonderful. We have a quite packed timetable today. So Extravaganza came to be or was launched because we wanted to have a virtual show for you guys so you can check out RME gear no matter where you are, because of the current situation now, it's literally impossible to do trade shows. So we figured, why not do it ourselves and show you in a really cool way what RME is all about. So today we have a lot to talk about. So we will start with our house band, which is Dick Infinity, and JB Eckl, one of our artists. He is just a fan of BabyFace Pro and the UFX2 and literally everything that comes with it, which is TotalMix FX and DigiCheck. And you can listen for yourself, even though we are in a live situation, what RME interfaces are capable of, right, Derek?
That's correct. Yeah, and JB is joined by his band on bass and guitar. So he's got, let me just make sure I get these names right, Pancho on bass and Paul Alexander Gonzalez on drums. These guys are amazing players, and the stuff that they do, I think you're going to really enjoy.
Oh yeah, it's like funky rock soul music. It's really good. They have been on the last NAMM show, and they just rocked the place. It was literally amazing to see them. And then we have a little video from myself, because I figured, why not show you guys what some of the RME features are. And I think one of the most amazing features is Loopback. Both of us are using it right now, and you'll see in the video why. And then we just have a really, really great Q&A session with Adam Barber, a really cool guy who's doing a lot of Hollywood scoring and effects, and he's just an awesome guy. We have a lot of to talk with him. And guys, just write down in the chat whatever you would like to see or you would like to hear us talking about. We'll be happy to answer all of your questions.
Yeah, and the other thing I want to just share is, in addition to live streaming on the YouTube channels of Syntax and RME, we are also webcasting. So if you're on the go and you want to listen to some very high quality audio version of this, if you visit syntax.caster.fm, you can actually, in fact, I'll just share my screen so that everyone can see what I'm talking about. So if you go to the syntax.caster page, you will see it here, and just hit the play button. You can actually listen into a very high quality feed of all of this. So especially when the music's playing, that may be something you want to check out.
Cool, amazing. So let's begin with this first song, which is Thunderfunk from Dick Infinity with JB Eckl. Hey everyone, welcome back to the second episode of RME Extravaganza. I'm your host today, Adrian, product specialist from RME, and we have a lot of stuff to talk about today. I see you guys already joining in the channel, in the chats, which is great. Guys, whenever you have a question about RME products, just write it down in the comment section. And Derek is with me today from RME USA. Hey, Derek.
Hey, hello.
We are both using a really cool feature, which is called Loopback. And why not show you what Loopback is all about in a short video clip, and then we will talk about it.
Hey everyone, Adrian here from RME. This time I want to give you a quick rundown of a feature that every RME user should know about, and it's called Loopback. Loopback will increase your workflow tremendously, and it will also boost your creativity because it turns your RME interface in a very sophisticated digital patch bay. So let's check that out. You will find Loopback on every output channel, and there is no distinction between analog or digital outputs in TotalMix FX. Loopback will work on every output channel. So you'll find it under the tool icon, and then there is Loopback. And once I activate Loopback, every signal that is routed to this particular output channel will be sent back to the respective input channel, meaning I have output channels 3 and 4, and every signal that is now sent to this channel will be sent back to input channel 3 and 4. So let's do that. I have selected output 3 and 4, and I send my voice now to the submix 3 and 4. But you see, even though we have activated Loopback, that there is no metering. And why is that? Well, input channels in TotalMix FX work in a specific manner, and they just show levels when there is a physical connection, meaning analog inputs or an ADAT connection. So just because you don't see any metering doesn't mean that there is no signal going to this input channel. So keep that in mind when you are working with Loopback. To capture the Loopback channel, all we have to do is go to our DAW, select the Loopback channel, and press record.
That's an amazing feature. I can't imagine doing what we do remotely or doing Zoom meetings or doing anything for recording podcasts without that feature.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Loopback is such a strong feature because I've witnessed so many people trying to figure out, hey, how can I integrate Skype, Zoom, or any meeting software or anything that has to do with routing audio in between different software programs, and they all just try to do it with cables, and the back of the interface is just full with different stuff, right? I think that's one of the beauties of Loopback, that you can just use every channel. And guys, as mentioned in the video, I can't stress this enough, this works with all your channels. So maybe you guys are wondering why there are so many ADAT channels or MADI channels.
I don't use ADAT.
Yeah, I don't use it. So well, then use it for routing. It's just, you don't have to sacrifice your precious microphone channels or your analog channels. Just use the ADAT channels.
Yeah, think of those bottom row faders as available inputs to send audio back into software like Zoom and Skype and your DAW. We do a lot of podcasting where we'll record a guest remotely, send the guest into one of those unused ADAT channels and turn it into an ADAT input and record it as a separate track. And we got a video segment coming up where we show that. I think you're going to find it really useful.
Oh, absolutely. And the beautiful thing is, because you're using a separate channel, if you have an interface from us with EQ and compression, for example, you can still use them separately on your host. So maybe your host has a I mean, we all know that if you have a Skype session, maybe you need some de-essing, or the voices are, the dynamics are too high. Then you can just work with your RME interface, and you have like the best mixing tool right at your disposal.
Sounds good. So who do we have coming up?
Oh, well, I've been working with this guy for quite some time now. We had so much fun on the last NAMM show. It's no other than Adam Barber. Hey, Adam, are you with us today?
He's there.
He's there.
I know.
Drinking some coffee.
Yes. Can you hear me?
We can
Yes,
hear you.
we can hear you.
Fabulous. Okay.
Fabulous. So, Adam, what happened in the last year?
Oh my word. Let's see. Great. I can see you guys now. Pandemic. And then strangely, a lot of work actually started happening during it. Everybody wanted to work remotely. Everybody started making their own little cocoons and bubbles. And I started getting phone calls for all sorts of interesting opportunities, you could say, that the last year has afforded us. At least that's the way I'm trying to look at it.
Okay, that's cool.
So, yeah, so I haven't been turning anything down because I'm just trying to like live in the moment and see what comes my way. And it's been everything from writing. So a bunch of commercial opportunities, number one. Not as many film projects. Those kind of got pushed to next year. But a lot of like prep work for film projects. You recently pointed out, you saw me with like 2 Mac Pros, the new ones, and HDX cards, slapping them in and having fun with that. Those are for a project that's coming up, well, fingers crossed, in like May or so.
Okay.
And so that'll be really exciting if that comes through.
Hey, Adam, just for those who may not know your background,
Exactly.
maybe you could just tell the people watching kind of who you are and
Yep.
all the cool stuff about you.
Sorry, I will do a quick review. I always forget.
Yes.
I
No, it's
know
all
these
good.
guys so well. So my name's Adam Barber. I am a composer and producer based in Los Angeles. I've been in LA like 20 years. And in that time, I've been able to have a wonderful experience in the music community, doing all sorts of things, everything from being an technical assistant for Hans Zimmer, doing assistant technical sampling stuff for Danny Elfman, working on orchestration and arranging and synthestrations basically for Christopher Young. Alex Werman was another person that I worked with. And all along, the son of Ennio Morricone, Andrea Morricone, that was an interesting opportunity for a couple of years. We worked out of the Village, which is a great little studio on the west side of LA. And it's afforded, all these last 20 years has afforded me the opportunity to work on everything from commercials to films, working my way up to writing my own music for my own projects, bands, and then my own features, indie or like little things. I had one come out 2 years ago, London Fields. That was a really interesting gig. I did basically everything on it musically, from supervision, editorial, to basically rewriting the score. It was a really great musical project for me to put everything I had learned over the last 20 years in Los Angeles, to put it into a process on a film. It really made me feel good about that. And I worked with a lot of great people on that. The engineer was Brad Hanel, who's a friend of mine. He works with a lot of other wonderful composers in Los Angeles. Most notably, off the top of my head, Mark Mothersbaugh. He works with him all the time. And then the dub mixer, which was another great opportunity, 3-time Oscar winner, Christopher Jenkins. I was able to have a conversation with him and ask if he'd like to be a part of the dub mixing team, which he was, and another wonderful person, Sal Ojeda, another wonderful person. And that was a great little small unit. And yeah, those are a couple things about me. How's that?
That sounds really good, man. For you guys that don't know what we're going to do with Adam today, we have prepared a little snippet, I think. Derek, is that right?
Well, we had we did have a video prepared, but we went right into it. So we're ebbing and flowing. We're going with the flow here. So just go ahead.
Okay, so guys, thank you so much. I mean, we have already now over 58 viewers on all our channels. This is great. I mean, you guys, congratulations to Andreas. He bought his first UFX Plus and he's really excited. I think you will learn something today. So Adam, why not talking about your setup? Because I know you are one of the guys, last time we talked about it, you have a crazy setup because because you mixed literally Dante with MADI and then you switched over to analog and you interconnected everything. So let me get this straight. You have a DigiFace Dante, you have
go ahead. Yep.
BabyFace XT,
yep,
then you have some Dante converters, and then you just have the
BabyFace Pro. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your.
Yeah, I'm gonna show some pictures while you guys talk. I don't know what the pizza.
Sorry,
I'm sure
that was a mistake.
I'm looking forward to hearing about that, but we're gonna go by that in a minute.
Right. I mean, the pizza looks delicious, man.
so yeah, I'm gonna flash some photos while you talk.
Yeah. So this actually So let me talk about the drums actually. So this is actually I used the 12 mic pre, which is the newest. One of the newest interfaces by RME. It's an AVB MADI 12-channel mic pre with 4 TRS inputs on channels 1 through 4. It's a fabulous utilitarian on location or in the studio tool.
There's a shot of it right there.
Boom. Yeah. And that's how I had it set up. In this shot, you see the DigiFace Dante and you see the 12 mic pre, and I have a Surface hooked up to it with TotalMix on the right, and that was great for doing some quick mixes and what do you call it? Not playlists, but when you switch between the mixer settings on TotalMix.
Oh, layouts and snapshots.
Yeah. Different layouts and set snapshots. So that was really nice to have that because was sitting away from my main recording rig across the room. And here I'm testing right here with the drums. And then what we did here was the idea was I was going to take this and put it into a live setup with a trio with Grammy Award winner keyboard and fusion player Jeff Lorber, Gary Novak, and Jimmy Haslip. That was a blast. So here you see the 12 mic pre. That's going out to my drum kit, which I was using and demoing the unit with, and then. The signal goes into the 12 mic pre on those first 5 channels, and then it goes into the DigiFace Dante, and the DigiFace Dante then converted that to my Dante network, and it worked seamlessly. It was great. I have 2 DigiFace Dantes, so this was the introduction into the Dante network, and then by my BabyFace XT, which is my main I/O for my Mac Pro. It goes to the other DigiFace Dante, where that gets converted back to MADI into my BabyFace XT, into Logic or Pro Tools for stemming or writing. So that's kind of how that signal flow is going. I hope that.
And I mean, the critical thing for you was to really synchronize Logic and Pro Tools, right? So you got that working now, because Pro Tools is like it's the standard for you guys out there. So how's that working?
It's great. I actually just updated to the latest Pro Tools last night. I have 2 Ultimate Pro Tools rigs on my main Logic computer. I also have Pro Tools Ultimate, so I can switch between the 2. And since TotalMix is a multi-client interface, I'm able to utilize TotalMix in an interesting way, where basically I allow Logic to take over the driver, but I have a native card in my Mac Pro, and I use another interface, and I can still integrate TotalMix into the process of routing, mixing, and doing laybacks, which I have another machine which is just for laybacks. And basically the 2 machines are synced together, and so I can hit Logic, Pro Tools will roll on the PC and record, and those will do my stems. And it's been a really wonderful way for me to work and record what I'm getting done at a moment's notice, whether it's at the end of the night, or I just need to send something off, or I need to do redo some stems really fast. I can just hit record and just lay it out in one pass. So the one pass thing has like changed my whole working method, and it's all been because of TotalMix. Really, TotalMix has really been the key, and then the BabyFace XT.
Great. So yeah, cheers, man. I'll get myself coffee as well. By the way, I'm from in Germany right now, so it's near to midnight here for you, for me. So, but it's great to talk to you guys. So we talked previously about the sound of the 12 mic, because obviously that's crucial to you. And when I started recording with a 12 mic, I realized that something is going on for the first time for digital preamp, at least I find in that price range, that wasn't going on in the other mic pre's, and that was the high end on the overheads. And in the videos or in the pictures to be exact, you have some quite vintage AKG mics for the overheads. How these interconnect? Because I know overheads are critical.
Yeah, so those were C12As. So over my time in LA last 20 years, I've been able to make a lot of friends. And one of my really great friends is Jeff Lorber. I'm over at his studio all the time. He has a drum room, and I'm always recording drums. Either he's having me come over and we're doing a collaboration, or I'm going over there and I'm using his drum room. And he has 5 C12As because one's always breaking. So he has a couple extras for backup. And so he has these C12As permanent in the drum room for his overheads. And when we had the opportunity to demo the 12 mic, or actually when RME reached out to me, I was like, oh, I know what I want to do with this. This is like perfect for, small ensembles or for drums. Instantly, I was like, this is so much what I want to do with it. I want to record drums with this thing. And I had his drum room in my mind when I was talking to RME about demoing it. So we get over there, and I had been planning for a week with Jeff how we're gonna integrate it and do this live session, trio session. And in the drum room, you have the C12As for the overheads, which are great. We have a 414, a vintage EB, I think, which is kind of strange, but I put it on the hi-hat. And then we had a sub kick. We had just a regular Shure dynamic mic on the kick. I forget what model it was. We had some 421s. I know some people don't like the Sennheiser 421s, but I like them on the kit we had. It's I hope I pronounced this right, a Sakai or Sakai Japanese drum kit. Is really great kit. And then what else do we have? And then obviously on the snare we had over and under SM57, and I'm kind of my setup here is kind of mirrored off Jeff's setup. I don't have the C12As, but those C12As on that 12 mic pre sound fabulous. And Jeff in his studio, he has an SSL, he has a bunch of API pre's, and he has a couple of Neves. But my basis for the sound, being familiar with that drum room, is a colored sound for what it's going through. And what I noticed about the C12As on that 12 mic, the high end opened up a little bit, and it really sounded, it was like a pleasant, uplifting, open high sound. The cymbals sounded great. So I totally dug it with those C12As. Now I'm jealous and I want to go steal them or get a pair. But that was the first thing I noticed, and I was really happy. I was able to basically A/B what I'm hearing all the time in his studio with his console with this 12 mic, and then run this trio through it. Jeff on keys, Jimmy Haslip on bass, and Gary Novak on drums, and then utilize that in a routing system that I had set up with some other things in the studio. It was a really blast, fun day. And then I realized the power of the 12 mic. It's 1U, and you can take this thing on the road. You can put it into your studio setup. One of the things actually, and just stop me if I'm babbling. One of the things I want to do is that I'm checking out is people are using these it's basically you're able to take Ethernet and run 4 mic cables through it.
Mm.
And one of the things I want to do is get a 12 mic pre and put it into a little mobile rig with basically this Ethernet setup, so I can easily run Ethernet, take it on the road, and then run up cabling from the 12 mic pre over Ethernet, and then set up mics, XLRs, closer to where the players are in a recording situation. It's something I'm mapping out, but the 12 mic pre is definitely key in that scenario. And the other stuff, we'll see how that works out.
Great.
Yeah.
It's interesting because sometimes when we talk about production workflows, or we talk about what the right sound might be, we always have this distinction that it's always vintage that we need, but sometimes it's really about the balance. So when you have a colored mic, or you have a colored bass, or anything that sounds right from the get-go, why adding much more color that just gets you nowhere sometimes? And I think that's what you are facing with this situation, right?
Yeah, I wanted most of the time I want clarity in the signal and what I'm converting. An example is when you guys get me another 12 mic pre, because I want another one.
We will, man. We will.
I like putting effects on the signal chain externally before I go in to the box. So like right now I'm looking at a piano bass, Fender Rhodes, and a Mark II 73, and on the floor I have a bunch of pedals. And what I want to do is I want to play an instrument, whether it's guitar, a bass, a synth, keyboard, and go through pedals, or do the same thing with synths, outboard synths, Euro racks. And I want to do the effects and add the color, not through a preamp, not through a vintage thing. I think vintage gear has its place for sure. I mean, I love it, love to use it. But in general, I'm interested in making color and sonorities and mixing and blending and getting a sound, and I want that to be captured in the highest fidelity with my interface. So I'm always looking for that next level of clarity, capturing what I'm creating.
That's great, because you're not forced to one sound. You can always add the color, it's like a color palette, right? So if you want to stay clean, you stay clean, and if you need some more dirt or more grit, why not insert that, right?
Exactly.
So we have a great question from one of our users in the chat room, and he's asking if you have used other brands before. We don't have to name names here, but what made you to say, hey, let's switch over to RME? What was the initial moment for you?
I have used plenty of other gear. I get this, and this is a question I get a lot. Even before I started this wonderful, meeting the RME team, Adrian, you, and having this wonderful relationship, even before that, I came to realize that I was always recommending RME gear. And being in Hollywood, I consult a lot. Friends ask me for help. What about this interface? What about that interface? I'm getting this like constantly. And especially now with people working from home. Now, I'm not gonna say anything bad about other interfaces. Everybody has their own reason for getting a certain interface, whether it's they understand it, ease of use, their workflow. But what I found consistently was I didn't quite understand TotalMix, but TotalMix was like the gateway drug. Its ability, ease of use, it looks complex, but it's really not once you watch some of Adrian's videos online. It's really easy to use. And once I understood the functionality, and once I understood how it integrated into the recording process, and in particular my recording process and my creative process, I realized that, well, the converters are great. TotalMix is a part of the unit itself, and the drivers, their support and their weblog, it's really one of the best, I think, out there. And it's the way they have designed their interfaces and their gear. I think there is a simplicity that makes it a little more intuitive than other interfaces. I have other interfaces in the studio, but the RME BabyFace XT is my main interface. These other interfaces, I set them up and I never want to touch them again, because I think they're just like a Pro Tools interface. I have to use it.
Yeah.
I don't really want to. But I'm always finding myself coming back to the RME, interface for the drivers, the ease of use, and they're rock solid. I mean,
that's a huge point. I mean, when we talked at NAMM, and it's also in your video, and we show the video on the channel, on the Syntax channel, you can watch the video for yourself. It's 30 minutes long. It's great insight into Adam's workflow. You were mentioning it has to be rock solid, because obviously you need to make money, and you need to be always quick and fast. And when I started to use RME when I was a young lad back in the day, 10 years ago, I had my BabyFace 400, still love it to this day. And it was just always rock solid. And guys, I see you in the comments right now. Yes, you can update to Big Sur already. Big Sur is supported with every RME interface. And I see you, Pedro, and Gustavo. Yes, you can also use your BabyFace 400 and 800 still with the newest drivers. The only way to do that is with an adapter of a FireWire, but obviously we can control that. But yes, every interface since 2001 is supported still to this day. So
it's crazy. And let me add to that. So like a couple years ago, this is like another reason I think RME is amazing. There's this thing called end of life in technology, and companies don't have to support their gear after, I think, 5 or 7 years.
Yeah.
But RME still supports this like 19 years, 20 years of technology. And the other day I had an old multi-face from 2002 or something.
It's 2002 or 3 depending on HDSP or HDSPE.
It was HDSP, I think.
Okay, then that's the 2001 2002 one.
Yeah, and it was crazy. And I just wanted to plug in some synths and use the ADAT conversion. And I found the drivers on your other site that's not supported anymore.
Yeah, but it's the old one. Guys, before we forget that, if you're wondering, and I know this is a question that's coming up already in the chat, TotalMix FX is part of the driver. Just download the driver and then you're good to go. Okay, guys? Just download the driver and TotalMix is included in the driver. Okay, so
it installs and it pops up. Yeah, no worries. Yeah. And so I downloaded it and I was just completely impressed. It worked. It did what I needed it to do. I mean, I've used so much technology. There's very few pieces of technology out there that's a converter that's still basically supported after all this time. I mean, they're just such a good company in that one of those in that one regard. In addition to everything else they do well, it's really fabulous. So that's another reason. I mean, these pieces, they're just, I love them. They just work. They do what I need to do. I'm able to use them and integrate them into my workflow, and they just work in the background. And I have so many of them now because other interfaces, the drivers, not supported anymore. The interfaces of these other things I've tried before are terrible, confusing. I'm just like, yeah, whatever. I'm over it. Anyway. Sorry.
I mean, that's part of our deal. I mean, great guys, thank you so much for all these great comments. I see you. I mean, that's obviously one of the reasons why you all love RME, apparently, because the messages are coming in, and it's always drivers, it's stability. Great, guys, that you appreciate our work. And I tell you, we have very, very passionate engineers. Everything that we do is made by ourselves, from the USB driver to the FPGA, which is like the programmable stuff in the interface. It all comes from us. That's why we can still deliver this rock solid performance. And apart from that, I mean, we released the HDSPE AIO Pro now. And it's now on DAW Bench, the best sound card when it comes to latency, and that is just PCI Express. So, guys, we are still there, and we still try to push the boundaries of what is possible with the latency. So, Thank you guys for all the support. I mean, Adam, what's latency in your world? Is this a thing, or why should we care about latency in a one-man setup?
Yeah, well, I do actually. In my setup, it's a tight, efficient, small setup, but I actually have performers over here all the time. So I've had everything from a trio to just solo percussionists, and I will have people come over, and latency is a killer for creativity when somebody's really sensitive to it. You will have instrumentalists come over and be like, if they sense it in the feel of the music between what they're playing, if they have perfect pitch, especially if they're really that sensitive to the environment, the music, and what's going on, they're like, I can't play to this. So some people, it really is a killer. Some people literally cannot work with latency. So in my situation, in my scenario, even if it's a BabyFace or the BabyFace XT, doesn't matter about the channel count. I'm always direct monitoring. So I'm coming in from the microphone, whether it's a dynamic condenser or a contact mic. I'm coming into the interface, and then I'm shooting them a direct signal back out. And what's nice about the BabyFace XT, the BabyFace, the BabyFace, or the BabyFace Pro, which is like the BabyFace, I can give them a little EQ, a little compression, and if it's a vocalist, I can give them a little reverb if it's TotalMix FX, and they are set. And then we just start recording. And then in the box, I'm muting their recording track, and I'm just giving the singer what they need to hear. And then I'm doing, all my other creative stuff in Logic or Pro Tools. So that's another great benefit of TotalMix FX.
Yeah. So guys, if you don't know what we two nerds are talking about, latency occurs every time you convert something analog to digital. Meaning, if I'm recording my guitar or my beautiful voice onto my computer in my DAW, the computer needs some time to convert the analog signal into numbers. So that's a problem for many guys, and that's one of the reasons why you should sometimes work in TotalMix FX, because when you work in TotalMix FX, and I'm not making this up, this is not a marketing claim, there is zero latency. So it's like working with a normal analog mixing desk. You hear it instantly, and you don't have to worry about what's going on in the DAW. In the recording environment, your DAW just becomes the tracking system, and everything else in TotalMix FX is zero latency. And this is so crucial. Especially, I had a session with a bass player, and Adam, you can tell about these experiences as well. You have people that have so tight feeling, and they just hear like 10 milliseconds, they can hear that, and it's just like, no, it's off, I don't feel it. And when you have this session and you work in TotalMix FX, it's gone, and that's the beauty of it.
Yeah, absolutely. If they hear a little bit of phasing, so one of the things that will happen when you get into recording is sometimes people will double bus or do a direct out, and they'll send an out from their recording track, and so the person with the headphones, whoever's recording, they'll hear two signals. They'll hear the signal from the DAW, and then they'll hear the direct signal out from the interface. And then you hear a phasing between them, and that little phasing is the latency that's being produced by the conversion. So one signal is direct, no latency, and the other signal has latency from the DAW, and people will be like, what's going on? Yeah. And you just simply, in my case, I'll just mute the DAW and let the instrumentalist just hear their direct signal. And it's just like a major studio. There's no delay. It's you can give them their own feed. I'll give them their own headphone feed from TotalMix, and it's off to the races we go, and it's great.
Oh, absolutely. So, because I know you're such a you love the 12 mic, you love what we do, I think we have to mention another product that we will send to you over. It's the M1610 Pro, which is absolutely, I mean, we talked about this in preparation for this show. Guys, it's one of the best ADDA converters that we have, and I will prepare something with Derek, because every output of the M1610 Pro and the M32 Pro. DA is DC coupled, meaning for all you guys that want to do some crazy modular synthesizer stuff and want to control your analog synthesizers with your DAW or any program on your computer, you can do that. I mean, Adam, this is like the best of both worlds, right?
Yeah, I really am looking forward to getting my hands on one of these because I like using Reactor, and I also have soft tubes. They're Eurorack stuff, and I want to try some interesting stuff with seeing if I can get the CV out working into my Oberheim expander. And there's some other synths I have my eyes on too that have the Eurorack stuff that I want to experiment with without putting control voltage and whatnot. So just music, creativity, and general nerddom, if that's a word.
Yeah, so great. Okay, guys. Again, I can't stress this enough. If you have any questions for Adam Barber, just write them down in the chat now. I mean, there are a lot of comments, but they're generally about our stability in our drivers. And shout out to Munich. There's one of my fellow countrymen because I'm Germany and Adam is where are you? In Culver City right now.
Culver City, yeah.
Yeah, so
Los
we're
Angeles,
like 7 hours away from each other, but we still managed to do that, and that's because of a brilliant latency, guys. No, I'm just kidding. So, Adam, another thing that I wanted to talk to you about was also the DI input of the 12 mic, and you used that, and you told me that the DI input gave you some really hefty beef, right?
Oh yeah. Actually, one of the nicest things about it was being able to plug in Jimmy Haslip, bass player, directly into it, and he sounded great. So that was just having those four is a huge convenience factor. So we had him on the DI on one. We had I forget what we did with number 2, but then on the 3 and 4 we had keys. So I took the signal from Jeff's SSL console. There's a TT patch bay, which is just a patch bay. And I took the cable and I just plugged it right into the 12 mic. And he was playing out of a Yamaha, I forget, some Yamaha keyboard, which is like a Rhodes, had a great Rhodes sound or a CS80 sound. And that was having that dual input is another like great implementation of the unit, having that available to you. And then also here I have synths. I want to be able to basically plug out a 1/4 inch and pop it in, and boom, it's ready to go. So those four 1 through 4 fabulous. Has gain, which is another fabulous thing, because sometimes, like, I have a couple of synths, I won't call them out by name, but they really upset me. I've noticed that their gain structure, they're just kind of soft, and so now I find myself looking for converters with gain. So I can, like this, in this case, I could just go over, I can push the button on the 12 mic pre, and then you have access to the gain on the right with a little knob, and you can just turn it up, boom, done.
And also crazy on the 12 mic. At least I have to try to clip the DI. I couldn't do this. That was great, because sometimes you just don't. These sessions, you work and you forgot something, and then you clip, and the take was good, but it's gone. So to have headroom in this quality is amazing. But I seen your little iPad and I recognize that. Do you still use the TotalMix remote app, by the way? I
do. Oh yeah.
You have to show that in the camera, guys, because TotalMix is not only available on your screen, which means on your Mac or PC, but it's also available now as an iOS device or iOS app, so to be clear. And yes, thank you, Adam. And it's a fully fledged TotalMix that you have there. So everything that you do on this app reflects the full TotalMix FX and vice versa. The only thing is that we just bypass the audio signal, so it's just controller data. Oh yes, thank you. Adam, what are you doing with the TotalMix app normally?
So trying to make it level so so basically it's ideal for situations where I'm not in front of my DAW. So in this case, I'm seeing in real time my snapshots, and a real world example would be I have my iPad and I am not near my DAW and I'm working with an instrumentalist and I'm standing closer to them and further away from my keyboard, and I'm not able to touch TotalMix physically. Well, I can do it with my iPad or with the Surface Pro. Is TotalMix out on Android?
Right now, it's not.
Okay. All right. Well, but everybody has you. If you don't have like it's not a big deal. It's just if you have an iPad, it adds this next level of functionality and ease of use to the interface, and so it's great to have. It's not a deal breaker, but it is a luxury that I really enjoy. And so I can take this over to the instrumentalist and I can turn up the gain. I can affect the EQ. If it has TotalMix FX, I can do a little reverb. Do you like it like this? And I can stand next to him. I can take the headphones and I can test it like that. And then I can also affect the routing, and I can everything from routing to gain, headphones. I can all just do it remotely. So that is something I'm always using TotalMix FX, TotalMix remote for, and I am using it even for myself. If I want to set up in a different area away from my computer, I'm taking TotalMix on TotalMix remote on the iPad with me to where I am, and it's just nice not to have to do the dance back and forth. I mean, you're over here. Okay. Gotta touch back over here. Go over here.
Yeah,
go over here.
I completely get you.
Yeah. So that's the biggest joy. Allows me to stand away and be creative in the spot I want to be. Yeah.
And remember, guys, the TotalMix remote app is free for all of you guys. Just go to your app store and download it, and then you can set it up. We also have a really nice setup video on our RME channel, where you can see how you can just set up the whole thing. Adam, I think we could talk for hours now. I mean, we both are nerds. We love gear. We love both RME. I mean, we have so much to talk about, but sadly we have to go on.
No.
I had a question for Adam with
Yes.
TotalMix Remote. Have you ever bothered downloading it for a laptop? Because if you don't have an iOS iPad, you can still use a laptop. And I know a lot of drummers like to take a laptop, or if they don't have the iPad, they can go in and do it that way. So it's just another. I didn't know if you've tried that or.
So the closest thing I have done to it was the Surface Pro 7, which is basically Windows 10 on a tablet, and it's basically a laptop, but it's a touch interface surface, and that's my integration going down that path. I have TotalMix on every laptop I have. But when I implemented the Surface Pro 7, I was like, wow, that's awesome. So I really enjoyed doing that. But yeah, I wherever I am, TotalMix is there.
That's great.
We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for being here, and we will invite you back definitely. I think we have to do something with the M1610 Pro, just a session. People, if you have questions, again, write them down. I'll try to find all the questions that I can see through all those great comments. If you have something for the next extravaganza, people, write it down. We are open for any idea.
And one last thing, also, the web forum, RME's web forum, if you're not hip to it, it's a great forum. The people there are helpful. The engineers, people like Adrian, they interact with it. You can reach them through the web forum. I'm always looking at it. It's a great tool, and it's a great community. And you can also see the beta drivers and things like that. Anyway, that's all.
Oh, thank you. Great insight, man. See you next time, Adam.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Take care, Adam.
Thank you, gentlemen. Take care.
So that was very interesting. Adam is an amazing guy in his own right. So that was very fascinating to listen to. So great
I
questions.
could talk to him for hours. That's our problem. I mean, like you gave me just 40 minutes, and I was like, "What? Just 40 minutes?" I mean, phew. Okay, how can we fit every question that I have into this short time period? But we have to move on. I have to give another shout out to Denmark, obviously. People, I won't mention every country, but it's great that you just interact with us so much. And that's lovely. Our next thing is, because obviously you can see that it was for demo purpose. You can see us doing the whole show on Zoom today. And maybe you're questioning, how can I record all my hosts and my guests and mix them on TotalMix FX? And we will show you that now, because we have another beautiful lady from RME USA, and that is Mary. And Mary and Derek will show you now how you can record a remote guest.
Okay, what I'd like to do now is show you how to do a remote recording of a guest over the internet. And what we're going to illustrate is really a couple things. We're going to illustrate how powerful the BabyFace and TotalMix are for managing both your microphone and somebody else's audio remotely. How powerful Digigram's Akoya Guest is, which is what we're going to use to connect to somebody remotely. And how powerful the Loopback feature is, which is available on every one of the outputs on your BabyFace Pro. So first things first, let's connect to somebody remotely using Akoya Guest. So I have connected to my colleague, and by simply connecting a link in my browser and that colleague puts a link in their browser, we call each other by hitting the green call button. It's now red, so we're connected. So Marie, why don't you say hello? All right, and let me put Loopback on so you all can hear her. Go ahead and say hello again.
Hello there.
All right. So in order for you to hear her, I had to use Loopback on my main out, which I've now disabled because I want to illustrate how I can control my audio and her audio separately. So as you can see, I'm on mic input 1. She was coming in on software channel 1. And I'm going to take an output that I'm not using and engage the Loopback feature. And by simply bringing up the fader on that output, you won't hear, well, here, let me put Loopback on. Marie, why don't you just do a test 1, 2, 3?
Check 1, 2.
All right, there she is on ADAT SPDIF 1 and 2. I'm going to go ahead and uncheck Loopback on main out 1 and 2 so we don't get it twice. And by simply going to my DAW, which in this case I'm using Reaper, I will insert 2 tracks, 1 track for myself and 1 track for my remote guest. My audio is pretty simple because I'm just coming in on mic input 1. I hit that, there's my audio. Now, in order to get my remote guest, I'm using the Loopback feature in TotalMix. So she's going to be going out ADAT SPDIF 1 and 2. By engaging Loopback, that's going to look like input ADAT 1 and 2. So in my DAW, that's the input I select. Mono, ADAT SPDIF 1, which is where she is. You guys won't hear Marie, but Marie, why don't you say something?
Hello there.
There's her
Hello.
audio. And now we could hit record. And I could say, Marie, how you doing?
I'm doing great.
And then I can talk and she can respond.
Hello, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing great. So you can see in my DAW, our audio is completely separate. And that's all accomplished by using Akoya Guest as the audio codec over the internet and using TotalMix Loopback feature to do a separate mix. Thanks for watching. Yeah, so that's a really powerful feature just to be able to, I mean, there's a lot of ways to connect to people over the internet, Zoom, Skype, the Digigram codec that you saw us use. So, but the key here is the TotalMix and the Loopback and the routing. And of course, you and Adam talked about that a lot in the last segment. So, but you can see practically it's one of the coolest capabilities with everybody locked down and quarantined and trying to do production at home, to have that flexibility to have somebody remote and be able to separate their audio because of Loopback. And, you know, for those of you who might be wondering, like when you're doing Skype and Zoom and things like that, and especially the Mac users, that audio is tied to the Mac OS audio. You can't really separate it. Like your DAW has that flexibility. It sees your BabyFace and your Fireface IOs differently than the Mac OS does. So having that ability to create a mix and record it the way you saw that in that little tip video, I think is pretty cool. Adrian, what are some things that you guys do on your end?
Oh, too much to mention. So it's crazy. I mean, I'm doing a lot of live streams, of course, but also as a gamer, it's so great to have the possibility to really record your audio really precise. And sometimes I have to be honest with you, when I'm on the internet and listening to like a really unknown radio station over the internet, and sometimes I like a track, I make a bootleg with Loopback, maybe.
Oh yeah, I've done that.
But just don't mention that to anyone.
Yeah, even with like Spotify, if I hear something and I want to record it into my DAW and jam along with the track, it's just a fast down and easy way to do it, because my Spotify or iTunes is coming in that middle row of TotalMix, mixing it to an unused output, going into the DAW. So it's a quick way to, it's a good workaround, I guess is a good way to put it. It
is. And I just have a setup here on my ARC USB. Guys, you probably can see that here.
Yep, we can see it.
And I have on Snapshot 8, there is the Loopback session. So whenever I'm, feel like I want to record instantaneous something, I just hit my Snapshot 8 on my ARC USB, and then I can start recording whatever comes from my computer. So I can record every sound that I have on my computer, and that is just awesome. That's just an awesome feature.
All right. Maybe this is a good time to just thank everyone for watching. If you're not following us on either the Syntax channel or the RME channel, definitely subscribe and follow us. Adrian does a lot of videos that end up in both platforms, so anytime he uploads something, you will be notified. So I highly recommend that. And also, this is probably a good time to address any questions or comments that have been coming through. Adrian, I don't know if you had a chance to. You're doing a really good job interviewing and addressing questions. So I don't know if there's any outstanding questions you want to use on air here.
Yeah. First of all, people, I mean, what I'm seeing right now in the chat is just the best thing ever, because you help each other. I mean, there's such a fruitful conversation now going on. People help each other on how to set up their RME interfaces. I'm literally just useless at this point right now. So
wait,
thank you guys so much.
Did Adrian just admit he's useless? I'm not sure we've ever had that moment captured.
Okay, I'm saying right now.
Only now.
But yeah, there are some questions, and I mean, we have also a guy from the US. He wants to know if he can contact you guys over the phone, and of course, you can contact RME USA via phone.
Yeah, I'll give you the phone number. It is 754-206-4220. That's 754-206-4220. I feel like I'm doing a commercial. Call now. Our operators are standing by.
Yeah. We just maybe we just edit into
and we're still open. I mean, we're open until 6 o'clock. So if you call, you'll actually get somebody.
Yeah, just go to the website. Maybe you can show the website right now on your screen.
Oh yeah. Keep talking. I'll get it up real quick.
Yeah. We have a beautiful support team in the US. Jeff is one of the support guys, and he will be on the show later. And you can ask him some questions. So Jeff is one of the best guys to ask when there is something going wrong, which we all hope not wrong in that kind of sense. But if there's something you need to take care of, Jeff will be.
Yeah, you can go to RMEUSA.com for the USA folks in the audience. It looks just like the other site, and go to company, and there's contacts. There's a form there, and you can call us. No problem.
Yeah, that's great. Apart from that, I think we're having a lot of people loving the ADI2 Pro. A lot of headphone questions, but they're all answered at this point now, I think. Yes, looks like it. So we take a short break, and you guys can listen to another great track from Dick Infinity and JB Eckl, and they have been using the UFX 2, the BabyFace Pro, and some S-Gear bundled plugins. And the song is called Aphrodelic.
Wow, those guys can play. For those of you who don't know, that's Dig Infinity, and they are on Spotify, so you can check out their music there. A little shout out for them. And JB Eckl, the guitar player, he's also a vocalist. He is a avid RME user. There's a video of him talking about RME and his use of the UFX2 in his studio. He also uses the BabyFace Pro and a really cool guitar amp sim called S-Gear. So anyway, how you doing there, Adrian? I think you're muted. You might want to unmute your mic. And
so I'm back.
There he is.
Because I'm reading so many comments right now. So just to clarify one thing, yes, the side input of the ARC-USB is in fact a switch which you can use with your foot pedal. So if you want to hit record or anything else you would like to put on this foot pedal, you can do that with the ARC-USB. And apart from that, there are some questions about older RME interfaces, and yes, you can all use them via ADAT or MADI or something like that. We have a plethora of videos about this topic on our RME channel. Just go over to RMEAudio and just look for ADI2 Pro setups with the Fireface 800, for example. So there's a way how you can interact with each other.
Yeah, and later on, Jeff Peterson is talking about a segment where expanding your RME interfaces using the digital I/O, and I think in his segment he's talking more about MADI and what that can do, and that's coming up shortly.
Yeah, I have another question here that I want to answer quick. Yes, every AVB switch, Pedro, is working with the RME AVB stuff because AVB is an open format like MADI, so everyone that is certified to be in the AVB group can make a switch or an AVB product, and they should work with each other just fine. So
nice.
That's for it.
So Adrian, what's coming up next?
So now we have a discussion that everyone is having, at least the Windows guys, because it's what should you use, ASIO or WDM drivers for Windows, and how to install that. I think Jeff Peterson will now show us how to do that.
All right, here we go.
Jeff from Syntax here. I wanted to take a minute to explain some of the differences between the two Windows drivers that RME provides. When you install the RME device, you get both WDM drivers for general multimedia and ASIO drivers, ASIO, which will be used in your DAW softwares. It's a little different from on the Mac. In Mac OS, you have Core Audio that handles all audio tasks, and that doesn't really differentiate between the Pro Audio applications and general multimedia. In that case, Core Audio is all you have, and it handles both. On Windows, it works a little differently. WDM is generally used for the multimedia, whereas with ASIO, you have a bit perfect low latency path that's perfectly suited for DAW applications or high-end playback apps. So if you are working with high resolution FLAC or DSD or something along those lines, you can, in some instances, use our ASIO driver in those general multimedia apps. But generally speaking, everything from your iTunes to your browser audio with YouTube or streaming services, Spotify apps, those will all utilize WDM. Here we are looking at the Windows sound panel, our managed sound devices. So my built-in Realtek card is shown as a speakers device. And then I've also got my RME UFX analog 1, 2, and 3, 4. And for input devices, my Realtek microphone down here, and then my RME analog 1, 2, 3, 4. So now this is a Fireface UFX 2. Why am I only seeing 4 channels available here? It's because we have disabled the others from showing up in WDM. Now that may seem a little unusual. Why would you want to hide channels? The reason for it is that some applications have problems with high channel count WDM devices. So the UFX2 at 30 channels is not going to be too much trouble, but if this were a UFX Plus, which has 94 channels, then it can really cause big slowdowns particularly with some of the DAW applications. So if you do have those kind of problems where it takes forever for your DAW software to start up, you might want to take a look here and remove some of your WDM devices. Here's the section on the RME driver panel where that would be done. We can first select whether we want these to be as stereo pairs or multi-channel. And multi-channel here means 8-channel devices. So I can choose whether they're going to show up as stereo or multi-channel, and then I can configure and enable or disable devices. So I can make changes. Nothing really happens until I press the OK button. I'm not going to do that right now because it will kick off this recording. But let's say I wanted to show all the analog channels. I can do that here. I will just choose all the analog channels and leave the digital channels unchecked. And I can then also come over here to speaker and define which channel is going to be shown as the speaker channel over here on the Windows control panel. So if I wanted to show that analog 1, 2 as speakers, I would check that box right there. And same thing with the WDM devices. Now again, if I click OK, what would happen is over here, all these channels will start to pop up, and it takes about 30 seconds or so for those 12 channels to appear and be available. At that point, they will be available in your DAW software and in your Windows sound panel to be selected as a output device. So right now we can choose any of these that are enabled under the Manage panel. So that's kind of the short story of WDM. If you don't know which one to choose, if ASIO is available as an option, that's always, in my opinion, the best way to go. You will always have a bit perfect path from the player. There's no enhancements or any kind of processing happening to the ASIO signals. Whereas with WDM, you can do certain things where you can apply, different kinds of effects to the signal, and that can, of course, when you're looking for a perfect output, that can cause problems. So again, WDM for general multimedia, and use ASIO wherever you need low latency or bit perfect playback. Thanks very much. Have a great day.
Thank you, Jeff. Being more of a Mac guy, a lot of that goes over my head.
Yeah, me too. It's
once upon a time I was a Windows XP guy, but now it's foreign. But if you needed more information, you can contact Jeff at the RME site in the Americas, and you can contact Adrian in Europe.
Yes. Just to clarify something, because we have a question from Max, and he's wondering if the 5-phase UFX is enough for home studio use, or if it's beneficial to get the ADI2 DAC FS. And the clear answer is yes. Every RME interface is just a world of its own, and the sound quality is on par with everything out there. We have some higher end converters, and we will get to that. We have a video about Static Clock FS. So Static Clock FS is one of our key technologies when it comes to pristine audio quality. But you will learn, Max, that literally every RME interface is just brilliant when it comes to signal to noise ratio and to the overall sound quality. So I just wanted to make that sure, because the DAC FS, when we put out the DAC FS, it was supposed to be a converter for guys that would just want the utmost quality, and this is like the last 5% or 10%, and it also has a really powerful headphone amp. So I'm using right now the ADI2 Pro, which has 1.5 watts per channel, and that's why I can drive these beautiful headphones on my head. And yeah, that's about it. So no matter which RME interface you're choosing, you can't go wrong. It's just about the application that you want to use it for.
Yeah, I might just add to that with the ADI2 DAC. The one argument I might make for it is if you had some hearing anomalies in if you want to use headphones for mixing and you have hearing loss or other issues, the ADI2 DAC has some extremely powerful headphone monitoring features that might help in that situation. I sort of tell people that the existing RME gear is really pristine, and critical listening, mastering might be one area where the ADI2 series starts to make sense.
Oh, absolutely. So if the DAC and the ADI2 Pro, they have a dedicated EQ for every output.
Yep.
And every headphone output especially, and this is crucial. And you can separate the left and the right channel, meaning if you have some hear loss and you probably lose some high frequencies at around 8K up to 20K, you can just use the right EQ and just dial in the right amount. And also a great feature, I mean, Derek and I, we sometimes master or mix on headphones, is crossfeed. Crossfeed is a feature that allows you to hear on a headphone what you would hear on normal speakers, because crossfeed, as the name suggests, just mixes both signals. So you hear on the right speaker, on the right headphone, what the left headphone is playing, like you would sit on a normal speaker setup.
Yeah, sort of simulating the acoustics, because normally the left and right studio monitors there's gonna be crossfeed in air. So it sort of simulates that psychoacoustic phenomena that we're used to. So it actually simulates it a little bit better.
Yeah, so that's it. So apart from that, every RME interface is just a brilliant interface on its own. So I think we have another. Really
you're a gamer, so you're gonna love this segment, aren't you?
Yeah, I've watched it before, and I just it's for the nerd in me. It's Frank Klepacki's video, and Frank Klepacki is a sound designer and composer for games. And he will show you why RME interfaces, especially with latency and TotalMix FX, are such a crucial tool when you want to work fast and in a very, very high power environment. So let's take a look at that one.
Well, what shall we talk about? Wipe this temple off the base of the earth.
You're in for one hell of a ride.
Welcome back, Commander.
I'm Frank Klepacki. I'm an audio director, composer, and sound designer for video games. I'm most known for my composition work in the Command & Conquer franchise, Star Wars Empire at War, Blade Runner, The Lion King, and Monopoly. Some of the most recent projects that have come out that I've worked on have been the Command & Conquer Remastered Collection, which is available on Steam and EA's Origin service. And also I have a new solo album under my own name called Coded Number. So what does it mean to be an audio director for video games? Well, it means that we make decisions based on everything audio related as it pertains to implementing that into a game. Video game development is very different in terms of audio integration from film and TV. Film and TV is very linear. When you watch a program, it plays out the same way every time. So when a film composer or sound designer gets a cue to mix or create content for, it's a set amount of time, and they can hit beats and they can line everything up so it's perfect. With a video game, you don't have that, at least not exactly to that capacity. Players are very much in charge of how they're going to interact with a game, and that includes their own timing. They're going to operate at their own pace. So you're not guaranteed to hit certain beats necessarily, or have something play out the same way in the same amount of time, even because even though there might be an order of events to get to and achieve, it's not going to be laid out in a way that is timed out. So at least not most of the time. Composing for games, not only is it different from TV and film in terms of the linear thing, but it's different in terms of the approach. So, for example, before I compose for a game, typically I'll sit down with the designers and the producers of a game and, read some documents about how the game is going to be developed, what the general plan is, what the premise is, if there's a story there, and the real bullet point is, how do I add personality to this game with a soundtrack? Because that is a big part of how the player is going to experience this, and that's going to define their mood and how they feel as they navigate through this. So I try to determine that early, and I try to figure out, all right, is it going to be based on genre? Is it going to be based on, certain types of instruments? Is it going to be based on mood alone? What are the sort of the key things about this game that, is going to inform how I approach composing for it? And those are just the basic broad steps up front. It goes deeper than that in respect of how it's used in the game. So when you start a level, for example, is there going to be an introductory piece to the level, or is it just going to be immediate intensity? Is it going to kind of get you in an upbeat mood to kind of get into the groove of things, or is it going to be, really just low key? The events really are going to dictate, and the design is really going to dictate how that falls together. Then you're going to have moments, in the game that are going to require different emotional evoking pieces. Combat is generally more intense, but there might be multiple levels of combat, right? There might be just one guy attacking you, in which case you might have a subtle underscore, versus a group of guys attacking you, which then it becomes more intense. You might have two separate cues for those instances, or you might implement it in a way where there are stems. Stems meaning like separate tracks, and therefore it would be implemented in the game technically to know that if you're only fighting one guy, only play these stems, and when more guys join in, then fade in the rest of the stems that are already playing, and then it fills out the piece. That's one sort of other common implementation of music in video games, depending on the game itself and what the decision making is. So you have that. You might have cues that are just based on story points that become available to you, information that's given to the player. It might take you out of the game for a moment to go into a cinematic of some kind and kind of give you a little bit of information that furthers the story, and you might score that in more of a linear fashion, and then come out of that back into gameplay music, and maybe it's something that's seamless. Maybe it just kind of fades out, and then you fade into something else that is part of the game at that point. There's a lot of different decisions that you can make. You just have to decide what's best for the game. That's really the goal. What is best for the game? What enhances this game's personality from an audio perspective, from a music perspective, and then we just kind of take it from there, and just really try to hone in on the things that are special and capitalize on those moments. When I personally am composing for a game, I not only do I look for those things that are dictated by design and production, but oftentimes we don't have the luxury of seeing the game fleshed out or able to play it. It's not done yet. So in that case, we've got to kind of do some educated guessing and go by documents or just conversations that we've had with the team, and then I'll start creating something based on that. And because I'm a gamer and I understand the general scope of how this is probably going to feel and how it's going to pan out, I usually do pretty well with, getting a good idea of that up front. But, there's iteration and some back and forth sometimes with the team, depending on, how it impacts everyone, because ultimately the people that are closest to the design and how it's going to play really know how it should feel, more so than maybe even myself. So I'll put that in, try it out, see how it works, and if there's some feedback from the team, then I will take that into account and I'll go and rework the score so that it accommodates more what their vision was, because it is about really complementing a creative vision that's happening, even if it's in tandem. So I do that. And the technical aspect of it too, deciding on when music should play and even deciding when music shouldn't play. Maybe you have it silent for a little while so that you can appreciate the ambience. There's sound effects, there's the environment of whatever part of the landscape you're in, and you want to you want to appreciate that. So you have moments of silence to focus on the sound design and sound effects and voices, rather than constant score. So those are decisions to be made too. And I work closely with programmers, and particularly usually there's an audio programmer that's dedicated to helping me out with having the support that I need in order to pull off the way that I believe the music should be integrated. If there isn't already a means to do that in the game engine itself, then I will have the added engineering support to complement that. A game engine is basically the foundation for what the entire game runs on. It's the engineering code and base of which is going to run the design of how this game is built. It requires the engineers to make sure that all of the pieces are working together well. It requires design to have an understanding of how the scripting works and how maybe chaining together different nodes and systems work. And, and we all work together as a team in order to accomplish the goals that we have as the vision progresses during the development of a game. And developing a game, if you're talking small scale indie stuff, that could maybe take 6 months. If you're talking middle of the road, it could take a couple of years. If you're talking like AAA stuff, it could take 4 years. I mean, there's a lot of time and a lot of people that are on these video game teams, video game development teams that put this stuff together. And so it just depends on the scope of the game that's being done. What is the goal, and how do we get there in the most efficient manner with it working well and being fun. Being fun is really the main point we always want to drive home, because if it's not fun, then all of that works for nothing. So that's a big deal as well. All of our individual roles are then supporting one another to ultimately create fun for people. When you think of sound design and sound effects for movies and TV, for example, you have a mix to deal with, and it might be in surround, and of course you're finding elements that best fit what's happening on screen. But again, it's going to play out the same way every time, so you can really fine tune those mixes to be that experience. Well, in a video game, once again, you don't have that luxury, because the player can be at any particular place at any time and be using any type of weapon, because there might be multiple weapons to choose from, upgrades, all of that sort of thing. So because of that, you've got to have sounds in place to accommodate all of those choices that can happen at any time during the game. And it has to be incorporated into, these like compartmentalized, if you will, mini systems and animations and any other scripted sort of events that might occur. Because if a player has a gun, you want to make sure that it's firing the appropriate sound, that the appropriate sound is also heard in the distance and sounds like it's in the distance, that you would hear the bullets, the bullet casings hitting the floor, or, hitting the reloading foley of the weapon, and then he switches weapons. Now you've got a whole new set of sounds, a whole new set of animations, a whole new set of things that are happening, and the player's in control of that. So the sounds have to be integrated into these mini systems, if you will, that complement each individual thing the player might access. And so then it just becomes a spider web of that. There's so much of that to keep track of. And then you've got ambience. What's going on in the world? Is it a general like surround sound ambience that just happens because maybe you're looking top down, or are you 3D right in the middle of it and you are the player? And when you look around, that environment should actually be in surround but stay still so that you're moving with the proper positioning of what the surround sound is doing. There's things like putting in what we call emitters in a 3D space, where it's part of the world you're in. It's part of this level. So when you walk by something, it's actually in that 3D position and you hear it move past you, but it's actually in a fixed position right there, in the map of this level. Whether it's in a tree or in a building, or you've muffled it so it sounds like it's behind a wall. How you integrate that into the game is it's 50% of the work, really. Content creation is not enough. You have to have an understanding of these things in order for it to be effective and translate to how it's going to work ultimately in a game. Voice acting is probably still closer to how it's traditionally done for TV and film, but you would cast actors much the same way, and you would of course have scripts for them to read and record, but the scripts are a bit different in that there's going to be different lines of dialogue for different situations that the player is going to either experience or hear from someone else in the game, whether it's a quest giving character, non-player character, someone that furthers the story along. So there might be for example, there might be a situation where you approach this person that sends you on a quest, but he tells you something based on what you've already accomplished. So if the player accomplished XYZ, he gives you this line of dialogue. If the player accomplished everything, then he gives you this dialogue instead and rewards you for that. So there's all of those things that come into play where you have to have a clever script writer to accommodate all of these lines of dialogue for all of these situations that the player could experience. And then from the audio perspective, we have to not only edit these lines to sound appropriate, but then we have to integrate that into the game to be part of this system that accommodates what the player's progress is. Right now, especially in the time of COVID and people having to quarantine or work from home, which a lot of that is happening, it really has put more of the emphasis on being tech savvy now more than ever, because you can't just go to a regular recording studio that has a bunch of people working at it to do all the work for you and you just show up as the talent. Or if you're a musician, it's not enough for you to just show up to a session and have someone else record you. You've got to record yourself now, and it's not enough for you to just be a great voice actor. You need to designate part of your space now, deaden the sound, put up some blankets, whatever you need to do, get a good microphone, get a good interface. You have to now start thinking about these kinds of things and knowing at least enough engineering so that you can record yourself and send assets to people to be able to use in stuff like video games or commercials or television or whatever the final media is going to be. I've always typically looked for voice actors that had their own recording capability even in the past, because I would often seek people that lived in other countries, and I can't justify flying to another country's studio to record one actor. I might as well, it's easier to find that online and just have them deal with the recording on their end if they have the capability. If not, then I've got to look for someone else who can. Musicians right now are looking to do lots of different collaborative things together, where they're recording parts on each other's songs, and they're putting out videos of multiple cameras of multiple people in different locations and making their own music videos out of that. So in order to do that, You have to have the means of recording yourself in a quality way, and you have to have the means of doing video of yourself too. So all of those things are important. Technology is something that we all need to rally around, to utilize, in order to further our careers right now as creative types. It's more important now than ever. So workflow is extremely important to me. Because I do the variety of things that I do on a regular basis, and on a daily basis for that matter, I want everything set up and ready to go at all times. I don't want anything interrupting the creative flow or the workflow in order to keep my mind in that seamless transition, because I might be going into my DAW and recording music, and then stopping that for a minute, and then going into editing voice dialogue or recording voice dialogue. Then I might have to record live instruments being played, and then I might have to do a Zoom meeting or a Skype meeting or a Discord meeting. And I want to make sure that I have things just hooked up to all of that, so that all I have to do is just switch into that app and I'm there. And I'm not worried about setting something up, grabbing cables, grabbing the right microphone, or accommodating a sample rate, and having to dig into, all of that. It's technical hurdles will stifle creativity and progress. So with that in mind, I have a drum set that's ready to be played. It's already mic'd up and ready to go. I have a guitar amp that's mic'd up and ready to go. I have a bass amp that's plugged in, mic'd direct, ready to go. I have microphones ready for voiceover, ready to go. I've got a mic set up for specifically for meetings online that I use. And, that requires a lot of physical inputs, of course, and a lot of clever routing. And the way that I'm able to do that, fortunately, is I use RME Fireface UFX Plus interface and a RME 12 mic unit. And both of those together give me 24 physical inputs between both of those units, and ADAT input and output, AES EBU, and MADI in and out, which is great. I mean, I've hooked the 12 mic via MADI into the UFX Plus so that I can utilize those channels and free up ADAT channels for other uses, such as headphone distribution amps and things like that I want to route in that way. And that way I've got personal mixes set up for anyone who comes in here as a complete band, for example. They can run their own mixes, and I don't have to worry about what I'm doing for them. I can just focus on the session. So TotalMix FX has actually replaced a physical mixer for me because it shows me the inputs, the outputs, and the software playback that it's accessing. And it even has EQ, dynamics, and effects that I can run on those channels. So if I want to monitor myself with enhanced EQ and compression, I can do that. If I don't want to record that and have the option of putting my own EQ and compression on it in the box later, I can do that. There's a lot of great power with that, and it's really alleviated a lot of extra cable snakes running that I used to have to use in order to split off and send signals to multiple units. Now everything is really cleaned up and refined. It's actually, these two single space racks have replaced half of my gear. And then the other thing is I can use other channels virtually, basically, that only my computer needs to access, like for the Zoom and Skype and Discord stuff. I have those on separate MADI channels. They're already hooked up and ready to go whenever I need them. So that's really huge. It's really huge to be able to say, okay, I'm gonna go record drums right now, done. I need to record voiceover now, done. I need to record guitar right now, done. Okay, now I've got a meeting, done. All of that stuff is so important in order to keep your progress and in your creative state of mind flowing, so you don't get frustrated and you don't have to stop what you're doing in order to accommodate one thing that you didn't think of that you need to now get to, or whatever the case is. So when it comes to video games, of course, probably the most common question I'm always asked is, how do you get into that industry, or how do you even start? My personal journey, I started as video game tester. I applied to work at a video game company, and got to play video games basically and try to break them, which is really what the job entails. Your job is to really play the game and try to play it the wrong way, as many ways as you can think of, in order to try to get it to glitch or crash or break or do something that's not supposed to do. And so in doing that, it opened my eyes to, kind of more about what the different departments were doing in video game development. And I was really inspired by that. It really made me want to be involved more than just what I was doing. So I aspired to that. Fortunately, I already had a head start in recording and composing and doing that at a young age. So I was sort of in the right place at the right time for that as well, because the video game industry, we're talking 1990, was also in its infancy in that way. It hadn't really turned into this huge thing that it is now. We were working on the original Nintendo Entertainment System, for example. So that was sort of my entry point. But the bar is pretty high now in terms of what's expected as far as the quality of work that you can do. So, it requires you to not just be creative as a composer or sound designer, but also to have the tech savvy, also to, know how to engineer your sessions, know how to mix, to know how to compete with what's out there already. If you listen to the stuff that you like and ask yourself if you can match up to that, that's really what your goal is. And that's just for content creation. That's not even accounting for implementation and the learning curve you're going to have to learn those kinds of systems and programs. And, there are classes you can take for that stuff, even online, for things like the Unreal Engine or WWise or FMod or whatever the audio middleware is that you might interface with. All of that stuff is there, and fortunately, it's more accessible than ever with the internet, and lots of education is available that didn't used to be there. And there's even colleges that have classes dedicated to video game development. Some schools are all about video game development. But, and interning is another thing that you can try to do. The bigger companies are usually the ones that are more open to such things. But, just get involved with communities online even. There are modding communities that, there are gamers out there that are so passionate about games they love, and they have some ability to either code or do art or audio or design or whatever, and they come up with their own variants of the games that they love and make those available, and it's just free for people to play and be part of the community, and they just do it out of passion. If you get involved with something like that, then you will have something to show for what you want to do and be able to show it to someone that you might be applying online to go work for. So all of those things are important, apart from just having a video that showcases a mix that you did or a SoundCloud or whatever. I mean, take it to the next level and show that, yeah, you're really interested in games because you've actually taken the time to learn about how they're made and interfaced with people that are equally passionate about making them in order to create something that is genuinely playable. Well, that about wraps it up. Thank you for watching. I hope that you got a good basic idea about video game development and video game audio. For more information on my projects, you can visit frankklepacki.com. And for more information on RME's units, you can visit rme-usa.com. Thank you again for watching, and take care.
Thank you, Frank Klepacki.
Wow.
That
Fascinating.
That was cool stuff. And wow, Frank Klepacki really took time to really show us what's going on in the game industry. That was really cool. Thank you,
yeah,
Frank.
Just the mindset of the audio that goes into it and all the different modular components of thinking about as characters change, sound changes, as weapons change, and all of that has to be pre-planned. And I loved, for those that are into recording a lot, like we are, like the idea of stems. You have one track for a single player, and then as more players get added, there's stems playing. And the RME interfaces, I think, and TotalMix are so suited for virtual sounds, better than any other manufacturer's interfaces, in my opinion.
Oh yes. I think that comes down to that RME interfaces are not tied to a specific protocol or specific workflow, just because we offer you so many options to really use your interface that it's quite you're quite free to do anything that you would like to. And I think that's the beauty of RME. So we never let you down on the drummer side, but we also give you so many options. And you maybe buy an interface and you don't know why you would use AES or ADAT at first, but then in the later years or stages of your development as a musician or producer, you will understand why these benefits or why these protocols exist and what the benefits are.
Yeah, like just how he has everything set up, ready to go. And I know Adam talked about that earlier today. Being able to just go in, okay, I need to do a track using this, and there's no thought. I mean, he in TotalMix does all the complex routings, everything's ready to go, and I think that's one of the hugest benefits of an RME studio over anything else that's out there.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we haven't even touched on the workspaces that you also have. So, guys, I think you know that by now. When you have a TotalMix FX session open, you have something called snapshots.
Yeah, I'm sharing the screen right now for people to see.
So on the right-hand side, under the view options, you have something called snapshots. And a snapshot is essentially a complete routing setup with EQ settings and everything. It's just there for you guys to save everything that you need. But you might need more than 8 snapshots. Well, there is another option. If you
I like
press
the workspace ID.
Yeah. If you press the W key on your keyboard, yes. I mean, Derek, you are prepared like a master.
I'm trying to move around the streaming software and TotalMix all at the same time. I'm doing my best here.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you have the black belt in TotalMix FX by now. So a workspace means that you can have different. I mean, a workspace contains literally everything within your TotalMix FX session, and that it contains all the 8 snapshots, the groups, the layout presets, everything. That's and so you can work as free as you want. And the great thing is you can share those files, so you can drag and drop workspace files on your computer, and you go to another computer and open up the workspace file, and you can work from there.
It saves a ton of time because you can go from tracking to mixing to overdubbing sessions to Zoom business calls, and have layouts and snapshots already pre-done with or without loopback and all of that. So it's once you learn it, it's a one and done setting. It saves people a lot of time.
Yeah, and
probably
you don't
a
get distracted.
Good time to address any questions. I know you were busy typing answers. I know Jeff Peterson. I don't know if there's any questions we want to address here, or should we take a break with Dig Infinity?
I just have, something that is just perfect now for what we said earlier. Max Seelan, I hope I'm saying your name right. He had a question about the UFX2 and the ADI2 Pro FS or the ADI2 FS. If there's a benefit and if I should choose one or the other. The beauty is, yes. Okay, first question or first answer, yes, there is a difference. If you need that difference, it's up to you. But if you want to have both, you can use both, because the UFX2 has AES and ADAT inputs, and you can use one of these inputs to integrate your ADI2 Pro into TotalMix FX. And that's just the beauty of it. Now you have the ADI2 Pro in TotalMix FX set up. So exactly what we said earlier. Sometimes at first you don't know why, but then you understand why we have so many protocols and connections available at such a interface as a professional audio tool like the UFX. So, Timber is asking another question. Is it possible to pan link to the hardware outputs? I don't know what you mean by that, but you can definitely pan your hardware outputs, definitely, and you can link the faders if that's something you need. But
I wonder if he's talking about like mute groups and fader groups, if there's panning groups, maybe. I'm not sure.
Yeah, but
maybe he can type a little more specifically, and we can address it in the next break.
But okay, that's great. Yeah. Okay, Max, he seems now that he's fully satisfied with our answers. Great.
Doing something right.
Great. Okay, how to clear snapshots to default state. Well,
I will share my TotalMix screen.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of ways to do that. I'm just sharing my TotalMix screen, so I'm not sure if the TotalMix menu on my Mac is showing up. But under options, there's a reset. That would be one way. And are you seeing that? I'm not sure if you're seeing that
I'm seeing it. I'm seeing it.
So like you have different, clear channel effects and clear channel names and all of that. I'm trying to think of other fast ways to do what he requested. Maybe Adrian, you have some thoughts.
Yes, so literally there are so many ways to do this. If we talked earlier about like a clean slate, of course there is the option to start a new workspace. So if you open up a new workspace, everything is set straight. You can reset the channel submixers. So there are literally 1,000 ways to do this, and you will figure it all about yourself. But maybe, we have talked about this. If you could do right click and just clear the mix, but that is too dangerous, I think. But I will talk to the developer.
Yeah, I can. What Adrian was talking about, if you, in fact, I will highlight my mouse. It's a little easier to follow me. Down here, I could right click and you get a little pop-up, clear submix, and copy the mix or mirror the mix. And we get a lot of questions about what's the difference between copying a mix and pasting it to another output and mirroring. And the basic difference is copy will take all the settings at the moment and copy it over to another output, but then any changes you make on either of those output mixes, now you start to go in two directions. Mirror is I'm basically linking two outputs, so whatever mix is going on, they're going to the same outputs at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. So a copy function is sort of like a static operation, while mirroring is a complete dynamic. So when you add or delete submixes or all this will be, as the name suggests, mirrored to the respective channel, so right. Or respective submix, so to say. So yeah, someone is asking if there's a total reset in TotalMix.
Oh yeah,
yeah. There is.
I don't want to hit it by accident, and then we'd really be in trouble.
So yeah, we have
under
those.
The options menu is where you'll find that.
Yeah, maybe you show just the
Sure. I will. So in your
Total
TotalMix window, you have TotalMix FX file function options window. Under the options, you will see a reset mix, and I'll leave my mouse there. And there's a bunch of options at the very bottom of that is total reset, and it'll just pretty much bring everything back to where it was when you first got your interface. And probably a good time to remind everybody, when you install your driver, it will install TotalMix. It's part of that install, and when everything works properly, your TotalMix window will come up as soon as you turn on the audio interface and it's already connected. The only times we've seen issues with that is like Mac security might block it, and you have to go into the security settings and allow TotalMix. And I know Jeff Peterson gets that email every day. But yeah, that's something just to remind folks. Well, we should probably take a short break and feature JB Eckl and his band Dig Infinity, and that'll give us time to address some more questions, and we'll be right back.
Yes.
Welcome back. That was JB Eckl and the band Dig Infinity featuring Poncho on bass and Paul Alexander Gonzalez on drums. Adrian, any questions or comments we need to address?
Yes, because I now have the clarification what was meant by panning the groups. So Mr. Ed is asking, when I record left and right guitar, should I pan input on RME right or in center? Thank you. So that's a really easy to answer question, because when you are working in the normal total mix mode, all the things that you're seeing, like center and panning and stuff like that, these are just settings for your submix. Meaning in your DAW, your channels will just show up as normal. So you can try it out for yourself. If you pan something to the left or to the right on a mono channel, your DAW will still record it in the center. And that is because everything that you are doing in TotalMix FX is based on the submixes on the bottom. So that's something you need to understand. But I've prepared a really, really cool series about TotalMix FX. Just go to our RME channel. You're on it right now, hopefully. Just go to RMEAudio or type it in YouTube, and then you can just also enter TotalMix FX. And I made a playlist consisting of like 8 or 9 videos about everything that you need to know.
Yeah, and the one thing I do a lot, I'm a guitar player, so I do a lot of guitar recording with amp simulation software. So in TotalMix, I will share that on the screen. So in TotalMix, my guitar amp software shows up in the middle row, and I always route it into the second fader, which I'm now using. And my guitar input, as Adrian illustrated, is mono. So if I open up my DAW, and the only thing that's going to happen in TotalMix that the DAW is going to get is the gain. And the gain is, I don't want to record my electric guitar dry. So the gain is going into my amp sim software. I point my amp simulation software to input 3 on my BabyFace. The output of that software shows up here. And then if I wanted to record that into a DAW, since this is now a stereo output, I could use Loopback on an output channel and keep everything balanced in the center. So the left channel of the amp is going into track, 1 of my DAW, and the right channel of the amp sim is going into track 2. So I would choose the ADAT 3 and 4 stereo input instead of mono input. So that would be the only, it's harder to talk about and say it verbally than it is to show you, but that's the only time where I think stereo and mono get a little dicey when you're doing that. But if you're just recording a mono source, like Adrian said, there's nothing really to think about.
Oh, yeah. And by the way, if you're wondering, yes, you can also have mono outputs. I also described that in my tutorials. And yes, you can mix stereo channels to mono outputs. So that is also possible if you get confused with that. There are 2 options depending on the panning. So one will be where the left and right signals are just summed together, or a mix of both. But that is highlighted in a special video.
Well, I'm really excited about our next guest.
Yes, me too. So our next guest is, the man himself, Matthias Carstens, our main engineer, and he just answers a lot of questions that you guys have about Steady Clock and Steady Clock FS, and what it does to your signal flow, and why jitter is such an important issue. So guys, enjoy this really cool video.
Hi, I'm Matthias Carstens from RME, and today I want to talk about Steady Clock FS. Steady Clock has been introduced in 2002 in the 8648. That was a MADI to ADAT converter, and there had been a technical reason to develop this kind of clocking. The MADI input signal usually is too jittery to extract a clock out of it. And that's why some units at that time had an additional word clock line running in parallel to the MADI signal. But this is of course cumbersome, and this defeats the purpose of the MADI a little bit. So it's more nice to extract the clock directly out of MADI. So for technical reasons, the MADI clock that you extract directly from the MADI signal has a jitter of 80 nanoseconds. And 80 is a lot in the audio world. So for example, if you have a very long AES line, like 100 meters, you might end up with 10 to 20 nanoseconds of jitter, which is already a lot too. For normal connections between, let's say, something with a digital output and into your DAC at home, you end up with about 1 to maximum 5 nanoseconds. That is okay and usually not a big problem. So Steady Clock was developed to clean this 80 nanoseconds of jitter down to a value that is 1 nanosecond or below, so that you can use that clock for all its typical intended purposes. So in 2003, just 1 year later, we added Steady Clock to the PCI card HDSP 9632. And from then on, we put Steady Clock into any of our products. And that makes a lot of sense, because you want to have a clean clock and you want to have it in any case. It doesn't matter where your clock signal comes from. It can be digital like AECVU, or SPDIF coaxial, or XPDIF optical, or whatever. You want to have a clean clock, and in digital audio you have to synchronize your devices with each other. So you cannot use internal clocks all the way. Only one device can have its internal clock running, which is usually quite clean. And for the others, you need the external clock, and then you want to clean that clock that you get from all this jitter. So the Steady Clock FS is a newer development that I will explain later over there when we change to the other workplace. Let me just show the normal Steady Clock functionality here on a small example on a test setup. We have an audio position APX555B over there that generates a square, like a word clock signal with 48 kilohertz, and it has applied a sine jitter of 2.5 kilohertz. With an amount of 50 nanoseconds. And this word clock signal is fed into a UFX Plus. You can see this signal here on the first channel on the oscilloscope. Peak to peak, these are now 100 nanoseconds of jitter. And the UFX Plus clocks on this jittery signal. The Steady Clock processes this clock signal and cleans it up, and the result is what you see down here. This is the output of the UFX Plus. All the jitter is gone. Now the point is that, of course, this clock cleaning is not only done for the digital output. This clock signal is used for everything inside the unit. That means AD conversion, DA conversion, all the digital outputs, everything is run with that one. So you may ask, what is the problem with jitter? Well, that's easy. A jittery signal is like a signal that is not steady, but well, doing strange things up and down, so to say. And what happens then is that with higher amounts of jitter, you get compatibility problems. That means your SPDIF or AS input might not lock anymore, might not be stable, drops the sync or something like that. And if you use this kind of clock for DA conversion, it's even worse, because the DA converter reacts directly on it. What you can get is some kind of sidebands to the pure original signal. You can get a modulated noise floor, or you can just get more noise at all. Things like that. So that's why you really want to avoid too much jitter. The jitter that we saw on the digital storage oscilloscope is so-called interface jitter. The jitter that happens on the digital interface path. That means from AECVU output to input, or from SPDIF output to input. This kind of jitter is not very critical. So if you hear about values between 1 and 5 nanoseconds, it's not a problem. This might sound astonishing, because usually you hear about jitter values in the picosecond area, or maybe even lower with femtosecond. This kind of jitter is typically sampling jitter. That means the jitter that happens within the AD and DA conversion, and which can directly influence the audio quality. So I will show now how this kind of jitter affects the AD-DA conversion. We will have the APX555B using a test jitter signal, feeding this into 3 different DACs, one with Steady Clock, one with Steady Clock FS, and one without anything, just the normal SPDIF receiver chip, which clocks then the DA converter, which is quite usual and popular. We will show on the screen here the different results that you get and how much audio is affected by it. This is the user interface of the audio precision system, and it's now configured in a way that it's very easy to show jitter effects on DA conversion. For this, just as explanation, on the left side here we have the input-output section. It's now configured to digital optical output, 48 kHz, which runs into the DAC. Below there is the input configuration. We use the XLR balanced lines right now. And here is the generator that produces the 10 kHz sine signal, which you can already see here in the FFT. And on an additional page here, we can set up the jitter effects. So right now we have the jitter chosen as a sine of 2.5 kHz, and right here you can adjust the amount of jitter that you want to apply. The nice thing about this kind of jitter measurement is that the 2.5 kHz modulation, the jitter itself, will be visible inside the FFT as 12.5 kHz and 7.5 kHz signal. Basically mirrored to the 10 kHz signal, so easy to read and easy to see. And that's what we will do now with 3 different DACs. I prepared some measurements to show the effects of jitter on the analog output of the DA conversion. And I would like to start with a unit that does not have any active jitter reduction within the audio band. Interestingly, this unit uses an AKM 4490 chip, the same DAC chip that is built into the ADI2 DAC. Now, if you have a little bit experience with this kind of FFT measurements, you will notice that here, where we see a nearly full-scale 10 kHz sine, the noise floor shown at minus 130 dB is too high. If you compare this to an ADI2 DAC measurement, then you will see the noise floor there is at about minus 155, using the same DAC chip. So this noise might either be a bad hardware implementation on the analog output side, or might already be a jitter artifact. Jitter can be sidebands, lots of kind of needles shown here, or noise modulations in any kind. Even a broadband noise modulation is possible. So let's see what happens if we change the so far jitter-free input signal to one that has 1 nanoseconds of jitter on it. We immediately see the sidebands, 2.5 kHz distance from the center one. And here the jitter modulated sidebands reach a level on about minus 94 dB, which is about CD quality. This is with only 1 nanoseconds of jitter. Higher jitter values, of course, cause higher sidebands. This is 10 nanoseconds, this is 20 nanoseconds, and finally 50 nanoseconds. Now we reach about minus 60 dB. What happens if we go down with the jitter? Let's say we have an ideal transmission. The interface jitter is quite low, so let's try with only 100 picoseconds. This is 100 picoseconds of jitter on the optical input, and even here you can see the sidebands clearly out of the noise floor. They now reach a level of about minus 114 dB. So to show these effects on a steady clock device, I measured the Fireface UC. The Fireface UC has an older AD-DA converter in it as the modern units. So basically it's not on a level with an AK4490, but you can see here that the UC still provides a lower noise floor. It has a better analog implementation and clock implementation than the other unit that uses the latest AK4490 chip. So let's now apply some jitter to the optical input signal of the Fireface UC, and I just did one measurement because that is enough to show it's 20 nanoseconds of jitter. And you can see the sidebands again. They are at about minus 119 dB. Now compare this to a unit that doesn't have steady clock. It 20 nanoseconds again, we had at that measurement about minus 68. So steady clock indeed reduces the jitter by not only 30 dB like we advertise it, but a lot more. Now steady clock FS is advertised as having an even higher jitter reduction and also less self jitter. So let's see what the ADR2 DUC does with all this. This is the jitter-free optical input signal for the ADR2 DUC with a very low noise floor of about minus 155 in this measurement. And now let's apply a whopping 50 nanoseconds of digital jitter. Yes, there are no sidebands visible. This is 100 nanoseconds, still nothing visible, and this is a really ridiculously high 150 nanoseconds of jitter, nothing. Conclusion?
Wow. That is amazing.
And that highlights something I can't stress enough, because sometimes when you hear about converter values or you hear about THD plus N and all these specs, and they come with a newer and greater converter chip, usually a converter chip comes with something around it, and it's called the interface. So even though
you're so profound.
Yeah, so profound. I mean, that's it's not that. Yeah, it's if you have a converter chip, you have to look, and the values that you get from a converter chip are the values that you would have if you are in a perfect scenario and there is just a converter chip. But you obviously have a PCB, you have some op amps or gain stages, so there is something to work around the converter chip. And all these things will influence the performance of the converter chip, and also digital jitter, so interface jitter. And to take control of these things, you have to use the complete interface in a real-time environment. And that's what we're showing here. So
yeah, the clock frequency that it's all timed against is so critical.
Exactly.
And it makes the converter and the preamp, even a bad one, sound better.
Yeah,
and I thought it was amazing to see no sidebands with an enormous amount of jitter, which is, to see it graphically kind of drives it home. And I always tell people it's a cornerstone technology of RME. It's what makes RME different. TotalMix is another cornerstone technology, but this is the one that people have a hard time wrapping their head around. So I love that video, and for Matthias to take the time is awesome.
And I have to mention something. The deck that we compared the UC to, so that was an AK 4490, which is like a premium converter chip that every high-end DAC uses right now. That DAC was also battery powered. So normally when you have a PSU, there's also some additional noise floor or some interference that takes care of. And that DAC that we have that we have compared the UC against also had no PSU. So the performance shouldn't be even better, but even just because we have steady clock implemented so good, it's better than a battery powered DAC. And I think that speaks volume about the implementation.
Yeah, and a lot of people ask about the new BabyFace Pro FS, which is steady clock FS, and you get the chip, the preamps, everything performs at a higher level because of it. And I mean, there's videos on the Syntax channel about why artists use it, and the #1 comment is sound quality. So the first thing they noticed was, wow. So.
Yeah, it's just something that you don't recognize at first if you don't really take the time to listen to it. And that's something I just want to say have a listen and just check it out for yourself. And there is something that can be said about just good, pristine audio quality. So we had a question, and I wrote it down. I wrote the question to one of the developers about if it's clipping in TotalMix FX, what is it exactly? And the short answer that I can give is it depends, and it depends on the input or the output stage and on the connector type. But usually, if you have the peak indicator lighting, which is Derek, you maybe so kind and show me TotalMix.
Sure, give me a second. Okay. There's
something called a peak indicator, and that is the red square in the level indicator. Yeah, exactly. So, and if that is clipping, you're actually 3 dBs above full scale, which means that is the indication of a digital clipping. So, just to make it a short answer, there's so much stuff to that, because also your DAW could clip and stuff like that. But generally speaking, if your peak indication is clipping, that is generally a digital clipping.
And there was quite a few questions asked. I know you and Jeff have been answering a lot. I don't know if there's any that we need to answer verbally or.
I think right now there are some questions about 5.1. Yes, 5.1 of course can be done in TotalMix FX. I know many people would love to see that, and I think it's time for me to do a video about 5.1.
Yeah, and DigiCheck metering has surround metering in it, doesn't it? At least the version of DigiCheck that I've used. So that's another. Actually, it's probably not a bad time to mention DigiCheck, because
I wanted to say the same. Maybe you could show it.
A lot of people don't like. What is that? I mean, the guys who really get in the weeds with the tech, they know it, but people forget that every RME interface, this is one where it doesn't come down with the drivers. You have to go get it.
Yeah.
But it's free with any RME interface, and it works with the RME interface. So, Adrian, maybe you want to tell the people about that a little bit.
So DigiCheck or DigiCheck for US guys, no matter what you want to call it, is our measurement software. So back in the day when RME was starting, many people wanted to do measurements. So analog or digital measurements, depending on, hey, I have a signal, what's the jitter, or is there any interference with some other stuff? And one of our developers, Ralph, made DigiCheck for this application. So I'm not kidding, you have a fully fledged mastering and measurement software at your disposal. And some people ask us if this is possible to use with other interfaces. And the simple answer is no. And that's because DigiCheck really measures what is going on the AD and digital side. So this is a really measurement. And there's nothing that is just like taking from the audio stream and just thinks about it. No, it's really measuring what's going on at that time and place. And you have a really cool stuff like phase correlation meter or a totalizer, which gives you all the frequency bands, or you can see all the inputs and outputs just across your screen. Maybe Derek, do you have something open up?
I'm trying. It's funny. I was looking for I think I had to uninstall it because I did a software update, so I don't have it. I was going to show people where they can download it off the site.
Maybe I give my screen, or
yeah, you can do that. Go ahead. You have the ability to share.
Okay, then let's do that. So,
and while he's doing that, if you go to the RMEAudio website, there's a download screen, and there's 2 drop downs. One is software. You'll see DigiCheck for Mac, the DigiCheck for Windows.
So I'm just showing it here right now. This is DigiCheck on my HDSPE MADI FX. So as you can see, we implemented a lot of stuff with that one. So it's now fully resizable. I can show you that. I can't show you that right now, but what it means is you have like really cool stuff to show and to highlight, and that is really, really amazing. Maybe I just tried to give you an input.
Yeah, that's like the totalizer. So he's got a phase correlation meter in there, spectral analyzer, and peak metering that is way more resolute than the TotalMix window. So if you really want to see your input levels even more precisely, I like to use DigiCheck, especially when I'm tracking.
Yeah, it's such a great tool, and it has now we had to update it for Mac just because Metal is now a thing, and that is important. So now you can see what's going on. I just put it on a Loopback channel, and you can now see that everything that I'm speaking into the microphone is now shown on the one side on my metering system, which also has K metering for all you mastering guys out there. And you also have a totalizer, which gives you a complete overview of everything that is going on. And of course, a phase correlation meter. And if you're asking me, hey, Adrian, can I have different meters for different channels? Oh yeah, totally. Every window that you see here, and you can add even more, but every window that you see here, not only can I change that to a different element, I can also go to the input selection and select a completely different MADI input or analog input, no matter what. I hope you can see that.
Yep.
So that is absolutely possible. So I can go here into my drop-down menu and can select all these channels here that I have. And my I'm a nerd. I told you that. So my MADI card has over 192 channels.
Yeah, and if you're a BabyFace user, you'd see your analog input 1 and analog input 2. So it's dependent on the audio interface from RME that you're using as to what you're going to see in there.
Exactly. So I'm now giving you back the screen. So
yeah, we got a little sidetracked, but it's always good. A lot of people are asking great questions, so we thank you for that. And one cool thing that we're really excited to share in this next segment is for the guitar players out there, because there's a lot of you. I, for one, as a guitar player, whether you're a bass player, electric guitar, acoustic guitar, I think RME products have some of the coolest features for guitar players. And the BabyFace Pro being mobile and portable is perfect for gigging, recording, and doing stuff like that. So
absolutely.
Who's our next artist?
I have to say, for all you guys out there, if you're interested in that, the new iPad Pro, and I do this on a daily basis, can power the BabyFace Pro. So you can take your iPad Pro and record just without any power to the wall. You just go and you can do your field recordings. That's really cool. But I give up now to the other guys.
I'm getting questions at the Syntax YouTube channel. I think Jeff Peterson is answering a lot of these questions. When we come out of this next break, I'll double check, make sure we don't leave anybody unanswered. So who do we have up next?
So sorry, I'm still in the chat.
Oh,
so
okay.
That one. Guys, we try to answer all the questions that you have. So our next guest is Janine, and she will tell us.
Actually, I think it's Lari, right? I think it's Lari.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm just making sure I didn't have the wrong segment.
So it's Lari Basilio. Many people will know her by now. She also done some great videos for Guild Guitars. She's an amazing guitarist, and I mean just look it for yourself.
Hi everyone, I'm Lari Basilio and I'm happy to be here with you guys at this incredible Syntax RME event. As some of you already know, I've been using the RME BabyFace Pro for quite some time now, and since the first time I tried it, it became my main audio interface, not only here in my home studio, but also anywhere I go when I need to record. There's so many great things to point out about the BabyFace Pro, but I absolutely love its size, weight, and of course, it allows me to record my guitar with the best sound quality I need. Because of its low latency, the BabyFace Pro is perfect for me to play and record using amp softwares and guitar plugins, and I want to show you guys what I'm using today. So lately I've been checking out the S-Gear 2 from Scuffham Amps, and it's great, guys. I'm digging it very much. The tones are very defined and full of dynamics, and the software comes with some really great sounding factory presets. But I also really love to dig in deeper and tweak the buttons myself, so I've created my own presets. It's very easy to navigate through the software, it's very intuitive, and I found my sound very quickly. I usually start off trying to find the right amp for the tone and sound that I want to achieve. From there, I start tweaking the buttons and EQing the amp. After that, I play around with some microphones and cabinets, and finally I add the effects that I need. The combination of the RME BabyFace Pro and the S-Gear from Scuffham Amps, it's great and I'm impressed. Either if I'm using the S-Gear as a standalone or as a plugin. Now I'm gonna play a song for you guys. It's called Not Alone, and I'm gonna use one of the presets that I created. Hope you guys enjoy it.
Wow.
That's it, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure to check out the RME products and also the Scuffham amp software. And I'll see you guys next time.
Wow. I mean, if you're a guitar player, she's fun to watch. She's an amazing player.
She is. And I think the great thing is it puts an end to this ongoing discussion whether or not you can integrate VST plugins and in your live setup or in your demoing rig, and you have too much latency or you can't use it.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way that video she did live with a BabyFace, with an amp sim software, and there's no way you could do that effectively. You know,
Yeah.
and she had backing tracks to boot, so and it was seamless.
And the beauty is you're not tied to one company, so you can use literally every VST that comes to your mind, and you're just free to use it. I mean, that's the most powerful message for me here.
Yeah. So we got an exciting segment coming up, especially for those that are have fire faces and always want to know about how to expand. And Jeff Peterson does a really good job talking about that. So what's coming up there, Adrian?
So we now have, yes, we have someone from the support team, Jeff Peterson. We talked earlier about him, and he will show us the capabilities with MADI, and especially so many people asking me about, for example, the UFX Plus, why I should consider the UFX Plus over the UFX 2 apart from Thunderbolt and USB 3, and that is definitely the 64 channels that MADI gives you. So you should take a closer look at the beauty of MADI in this video.
Jeff with Syntax here. Let's take a minute to look at some of the ways we can use MADI for expansion. On your RME UFX Plus, you're probably familiar with the analog line level connections over on the right hand side, the AES digital XLR connections, and your ADAT optical connections, but you may not be so familiar with MADI or not know what necessarily you can do with those ports. On the back panel, the optical MADI is up on top. You have an output and an input, and below are BNC connectors that are alternately word clock or MADI coaxial connections. What is MADI? Well, MADI is designed as a long-distance, high-channel count digital interconnect. It can support 64 channels at 48K sample rate, 32 channels at 96K, or 16 channels at 192K sample rate. MADI connection cabling is done via fiber optic cables, which is a standard computer networking part, or coaxial cable, which is just a run-of-the-mill 75 ohm BNC cable, as same as you would use for word clock connection. With MADI coax, you can go for runs of up to 100 meters from point to point. With the multi-mode fiber, which is standard, you can go up to 2,000 meters from point to point. And for more extreme applications, we can optionally install a single mode fiber port at the factory, and that gives you distance runs up to 10 kilometers from one device to the next. The most basic use for MADI would be to connect to a digital mixer. Many digital mixers have MADI built in, and you can simply take a feed from the board, connect it to the UFX MADI input, and do a multi-track recording of up to 64 channels directly into your DAW software. One cool feature with the Fireface UFX Plus is the DoorX system. That is a backup recorder that's built into the unit. You just plug in your own USB drive, and you can do a backup multi-track recording at the same time as you're recording in the DAW. If you wanted to add on more analog IOs to your RME, you can do that via MADI. Here we see an M32 Pro system. So what I'm doing here is connecting in a MADI loop. Basically, you can see through the connections that the MADI out of the Fireface goes to the MADI in on the first converter, out of the first converter to the input on the second converter, out of the second converter back to the input on the UFX Plus. And this way we can send audio to A to D converters and D to A converters, and also send control data through the line using RME's built-in embedded MIDI over MADI. If you're looking for mic preamps, the RME 12 mic is a great solution. This has MADI coax as standard, also has AVB for future use, and there's an optional SFP available to give you MADI fiber optic on either multi-mode or single mode if needed. So we can connect one 12 mic for 12 more inputs of mic level signals, or we can chain these together for multiple units, 12 channels per unit. Maybe you're not looking for analog, but you need some sort of digital format conversion. You have your own converters, and maybe they have AES EBU or ADAT. We can connect a digital format converter between MADI and these formats to give us that expansion capability. Here we see the RME ADI 6432, which gives us 64 channels of AES in and out. And all we're doing then is using the MADI as an intermediate format to take that AES signal and bring it into the Fireface for recording and playback. MADI is a great format for the digital audio networking solutions as well. Here we have the RME AVB tool, and that's going to allow me to take a MADI feed from my Fireface, connect to this AVB tool, and then change the MADI into AVB signal for input and output. So MADI is just used as a carrier between the AVB side and the Fireface. We can do a similar solution for a Dante network as well, either using RME's DigiFace Dante or the Ferrofish Verto MX, which gives us MADI to Dante bidirectional conversion. So here you connect your Dante network, the Verto converts that into MADI, sends it down the MADI line, and coming back the other direction it goes the same way, MADI to Dante. If you need a little more flexibility or work with live sound where you don't necessarily know what you're going to walk into when you go to do a recording, you should really be on ball with the Apsys Multiverter. This is a phenomenal unit that has a ton of different connectivity built into one box. We have connections for Dante, alternately switchable to AES 67 mode. We have AES 50, which is used on many digital consoles now. MADI over Twisted Pair, which is also used on several different digital consoles. Our MADI coax and optical. We're going to use one of those for the connection to the RME MADI interface. And then 8 ADAT ports for a total of 64 channels in and out. One of the really cool things here too is we can do multiple conversions at the same time. So if I send MADI from the RME into this box, I can distribute that signal out to Dante and at the same time to AES 50 and at the same time to ADAT and so forth. Hopefully this gives you some ideas for what you can do with that MADI port and how you can expand and grow your system into something that works better for you. Thank you.
And with us now is the man himself, Jeff Peterson from our support team USA. Hey man, how you doing?
Hello Adrian, how are you? Great to see you.
Great to see you, man.
Thanks for letting me in.
You've been busy answering questions.
Yeah, the phones are ringing off the hook. The chat is popping. It's days.
Yes, and we just want to, I think we wanted to add another layer because so many people were asking in the chat what if we have a support team, and I think it's great to have someone from the support team here with us today. So Jeff is the guy in the US if you have questions about any specific RME topic for that matter, right?
Absolutely. I'm here to help. We're available 10 to 6 Eastern time, Monday through Friday, pretty much every week of the year. So if you need any help, we're always here to help with advice. And, you know, I'm not a salesman. All I want is for you to be happy. So give us a call. We'll find the right solution for you.
Great. And I mean, these guys help you as soon as possible. So if you have some questions, write them down right now. We always try to answer your questions. So Jeff, maybe you can give us some rundown on the MADI stuff. I mean, MADI is such an old format. It's well implemented in everything. And I think what comes down to is not only have you a lot of additional channels at your disposal, you also have the ability to format to convert any format in your RME interface, right?
Absolutely. Like ADAT, which is a very old format now, MADI has been around over 30 years. It was developed in the 80s for connecting digital mixer to a digital recorder. And, RME saw this early on in their lifespan and said, this is a really good solution for us to do orchestral recording, where we need to get a lot of mic channels into a computer and record it. And we're talking back in Pentium days. So RME jumped in with both feet into the MADI world at that point. And it is still to this day, really a superior format in a lot of ways, because it's just a point-to-point system. You connect an output to an input, you connect the output of that one to the input of this one, and it's up and running immediately. There's no configuration other than clock. So with the network stuff, it gives you a lot more flexibility, but it adds on a lot of complexity. So in a lot of cases, if you're just doing point-to-point connection, MADI is perfect, bulletproof. It's really a wonderful solution, and it's really good to see and gratifying after all these years to see so many other manufacturers finally picking up the mantle and building MADI into their products.
Yeah, and not only that, but what I see and so many people don't recognize at first is that many of our RME MADI interfaces are also redundant. So that means you can use both MADI, because MADI comes in two forms. It comes as a coaxial version and an optical version. And what you will find is that we always implement a so-called mirror mode or something like that. So you can use either both at the same time, or you can split them. Maybe you can elaborate a bit more about that, Jeff, also as well.
Yeah, this is very important, and especially in live sound. So a lot of our MADI clientele over the years has been large-scale installations for, things like Las Vegas shows and live sound, broadcast. And when you have a system like that, failure is not an option. So what you can actually do is run parallel lines. So we can run always a coax and an optical between two devices, set it in redundant mode. If one breaks, let's say somebody cuts a cable, it will automatically fail over to the other format without loss of more than one sample. So this is pretty incredible. It immediately just snaps right back into place with usually no loss, possibly up to one sample lost. We also have cards such as BabyFace XT and the MADI FX card that Adrian's using in his studio. And this has triple redundancy. So we could do 2 fiber and 1 coax run for 64 channels, but split across 3 different lines. So this gives you really this capability of if something goes offline or you lose a MADI switcher somewhere, you have that redundancy built in, so you're not going to lose the show. Very similar to the way Dante is kind of doing things with their own parallel network on the secondary. It's the only way to go. You can't do a live show without redundancy.
Yeah, and since we now have also on the newer M16 10 Pro and also the M32 Pro AD and DA redundant PSU, which was something many customers asked for, you are literally now having a bulletproof system, I would say, because to have 2 PSU lanes plus MADI plus MADI redundant, that's a quite good feature set, I would say, for live environment.
Absolutely. There's always going to be some point of failure in a system, whether it's the computer or the board or the connection to the broadcast world. But, as much as we can eliminate those points of failure and build in redundancies, it's always helpful. One other thing, too, is not only do we have on the new products MADI and MADI redundant MADI, but they're also ready for the future because they come ready for AVB.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, AVB is something many people are asking us about, and why AVB should matter for these guys. And I think it's because we now have Dante, of course. But if you look at the history of RME, we have always been in favor of open formats, meaning there's no proprietary software. We can add value to the overall conglomerate that is the standard, which is MADI, for example. So MADI is an open format, everyone can implement it, and AVB is the same, and it will evolve in the future. And it's great that we just at this point now give the customer the ability to have everything at once, because like you've seen in the video, you can always do format conversion, meaning you have your studio here, and then you just connect your 12 mic or your M32 Pro in a MADI environment, but you could also use the M1610 Pro or the AVB tool as a converter from AVB to MADI, or the other way around, which gives you a hell lot of flexibility. I mean, Jeff, can you tell us something more? Why should we use that?
Yeah, well, you know, as I said, MADI is such a great format for these connections, connecting up your mic pre's or your board to your recording system. But once you get beyond that sort of, you know, series of products in a chain, and you get into something where it's more of a distributed system, MADI doesn't hold up too well to that kind of networking paradigm. So MADI can kind of do it if you have a MADI router. You can start to patch things to different channels. But if you want to be able to send stuff anywhere in a building, AVB is going to be the solution for you, because that gives you that flexibility where everything's just patched into a switch, and you can see every device that's on the network. You can shoot channels wherever you want them to go. You can receive channels from anywhere. So that's sort of the next evolutionary step. And, you know, to us, technically, AVB has a lot of advantages over Dante, primarily around the timing. So with AVB, you have a deterministic timing that every output is sample accurate on the system. And you don't get that with Dante. Now, Dante is very easy, very simple. There's tons and tons of products, and it works great in a lot of situations. But if I'm building a array speaker system that has 100 speakers, I need sample accuracy at every output. And that's what AVB can give me.
Oh, absolutely. And I think the more companies now, I mean, we're talking about Maya Sound, as many companies that will now add also AVB to the product lineup. I think we will see a huge AVB community in the next 5 years. I think that is prone to come. Yeah,
absolutely.
The one thing to add is with TotalMix, it makes routing AVB or Dante or MADI.
Yes. Yeah,
just very powerful. Summing, bussing, unlimited. So Jeff, thank you so much for jumping on. He's been busy. For those that were getting a lot of kudos for Jeff on the chat. So
thank you so much,
nice
Jeff.
to see you. We're gonna change up our schedule a little bit because we want to be sensitive to people's time. We have a segment on the BabyFace, using it as a standalone mixer. A lot of people don't realize that when you get a BabyFace Pro, you're really getting two products for the price of one. You're getting a killer audio interface. We've covered that and all of the features and benefits, but also it has standalone functionality and tactile buttons that can be used to your advantage, whether using it with a computer or using it even as a mixer without a computer. So we're going to have a segment on that. And then following that, we're going to be, we're really excited to share a segment with Roger Smith from Tower Power. So stay tuned, because that's coming up right after this. Adrian, are there any questions that we want to address before we cut into that?
I think there's too much. MADI is now still a thing that many people don't get, but we will in the next years we will have everyone on the MADI boat. Believe me.
All right. Well, without further ado, here we go. Okay, let's just show you how to get around on the BabyFace directly. Now, this is an audio interface, but it's also a standalone mixer. As such, there are tactile buttons that allow you to get around on the unit whether I'm using it with my computer or using it in a standalone mode. Now we have 2 mic inputs on the back, 2 balanced outputs on the back. So there's 2 analog in, 2 analog out. There's 2 analog in on the side that can be line or instrument, and I got 2 headphone jacks. On the other side, I have digital I/O in the form of ADAT and SPDIF, and I also have my MIDI, USB, and if I want to, I can use an external power supply and use this with an iPad. So what I'm about to show you is how to get around on the unit, whether I'm using it standalone or using it with the computer. So one of the most common things you're going to do is change the output level. So if I want to toggle between channels 1 and 2, headphone, and the first 2 outputs of the digital I/O, I simply select it and I can change the level. So commonly you're going to adjust your headphone level. So you select headphones, and now I can change the headphone level very, very easily. If I want to change the output, which is going to you guys, I can change it here very, very easily and bring it up and bring it down. Over here on the left, I have the input section, and I can toggle between input 1 and 2, input 3 and 4, and the first 2 inputs of the digital I/O. So input 1 and 2 is my microphone inputs. So there's my microphone here. I also can go to the right channel. Now to adjust the gain of the inputs, you simply choose which pair of inputs you want to control. So I'll go to input 3 and 4 right now, hit the select button. There's input 3, there's input 4, and then I can do them both together. So let's go to input 3, and that's changing the gain. And I can see very, very easily what's going on with the gain. If I want to go to input 4, I can change the gain again. If I want to control them together, I hit select again, and now they're both highlighted, and I can keep them relative. So for my microphone, I simply go to input 1 and 2, hit select, and now it's highlighted, and I can change the gain of my microphone, hit it again, and I can now change the gain of microphone input 2. All right. I also can turn on phantom power very easily in this section as well. What about mixing? I mentioned that this is a standalone mixer. So how would I mix the level of my microphone to my headphones? Well, I simply go to the headphone out and then hit mix. And I'm already on 3 and 4. So let me go to input 1, hit mix, hit the select button. And now I'm controlling the level of my microphone going to my headphones, my headphone out. If I hit select again, I'm now controlling microphone 2 going to my headphones. If I was using this mixer as a sort of a DJ mixer, I could go to the output and now control the level of my microphone going to the output, which is actually feeding this recording. All right, so I'm on 1 and 2. I've hit select, and now I'm changing the level of the microphone going to the output 1 and 2. So I hope this sort of explains what you can do just directly on the unit between the output section, the input section, creating a mix, turning on phantom power, creating your gain control, as well as the dim, which is how you can dim the output down to a preset amount of gain.
Thank you so much, Derek. That was a great video about the BabyFace Pro.
Yeah, you know what's funny too is because people forget that it's a standalone product. You know, we're so hyper focused on what's the best portable audio interface, and of course we believe the BabyFace is, but it's also a mixer. So you're getting two things for the price of one. And the other thing that I'll tell people is those buttons are customizable. When it's connected to your computer, you can actually go into your ARC and hotkey button preferences and define what the mix button does and what the set button does. In fact, for this live stream, I've been using the A button as a mic mute, so I could mute the microphone in between segments and stuff. So there's a lot of power in all of that.
Yeah, that's really cool. And it's also bus powered, so no additional cables. And it's bus powered also by the iPad Pro. I can't stress this enough. I was so blown away when I could do my field recordings with my iPad Pro and the BabyFace Pro FS. That was really cool.
Yeah, and a lot of people ask, there's a little DC power there, and yes, you can get that accessory separately, but I've powered it using my iPhone plug and going right into it from the USB. So it's, yeah.
Yeah. So we have two questions. First question is if we are ever going to create a DAW like Logic, Cubase, or Pro Tools, and the answer is no, because we are really, I mean, compared to other brands, we still have a very small team that is really doing the core development, and we want to keep it just stable. And a DAW would just add too much hassle. And I mean, there are great DAWs out there, so why would you need another DAW from us guys? And the second question is there any chance dynamics will be available on the BabyFace Pro FS? We can't say that right now. We don't know. The problem with the DSPs was they would be, apart from the cost, would be too big, and you couldn't put that into the small footprint. So it is what it is, and I think just use it for what it is.
Yeah, and the one thing about the BabyFace, going back to the iPad, is that there is TotalMix for iPad. I was using a class-compliant interface. I won't mention the name. And I was struggling with it. And when I got the BabyFace and I was using it with my iPad, and it was like a version 2. So I think it had the more current lightning adapter. And I got that camera connection kit to connect the USB to the thing. And I downloaded the TotalMix for iPad. Boy, did that overcome a lot of routing challenges that the iPad presents in the iOS operating system. So if there are people out there that are interested to learn more about recording with your iPad and the apps that are available, I can't stress enough how great the BabyFace or an Octamic XTC or some, they're all capable of. We have like one interface that's not. I think it's the Fireface UC, but everything else is class compliant and capable of connecting to your iPad, and you can use TotalMix. And yeah, we're really proud of that.
And again, it's something we never really marketed. We just implemented it.
Yeah, I know. And people have asked for videos, and
Yeah.
It's challenging because, you know, with a screen share, you can do it, but with an iPad, you got to put a camera on the iPad screen because iOS doesn't let you do the same kind of screen share the way we can do it here. So I've tried to do a video for you all, and that's been.
I think it's time to show it in a video, and I get the subtle message that you sent to me here.
Did you like that?
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. So I think we have another segment.
Yeah, this is the last segment of the day with Roger Smith. We ran long, so we were going to save one of our segments for next month. I won't tell you which one, so you'll have to check it out. But Roger Smith is up next. Tell us a little bit about
Tower of Power, man, and that is really cool. So we should see that video now and then wrap up the show, right?
Yeah.
Hey everybody, my name is Roger Smith. I play keyboards and organ with the group Tower of Power.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow is right. Roger Smith, ladies and gentlemen, they were using a Fireface UFX Plus with MADI connected to the 12 mic, just what you and Jeff, Adrian, were talking about a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
We got quite a few questions on the Syntax YouTube channel that I just want to address.
But first of all, I want to say thank you to Roger Smith and the other musicians. I mean, in these hard times, to play with masks and just to let us enjoy such a wonderful music, it's amazing. Thank you guys for that one.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Let's
answer the questions.
All right. Regarding the Lari Basilio performance, yes, she did not use a DI. She had that electric guitar that was an Ibanez plugged right into the BabyFace Pro, and she was using S gear, so there was no other gear used in that. So that was to answer that question. What is the difference between the TotalMix Remote app and the TotalMix FX app for the iPad? I'm going to let Adrian answer. I know the answer, but I need a glass of water here, so I'm going to let Adrian answer that.
So that, as mentioned earlier, the TotalMix Remote app is just as the name suggests, is a remote app. So you establish a connection over Wi-Fi to your local host computer, where the TotalMix session itself is on. So let's say you have a Mac computer where you have connected your UFX2 or your BabyFace, and you have a Wi-Fi network attached to that one. You can just use an iPad and dial it in over the Wi-Fi network, and then remote control the TotalMix FX session that is on that MacBook. So that's the idea of TotalMix FX Remote. TotalMix FX itself on the iPad is something that really has the audio stream. So it's not just control data, it's really the audio stream that you mix. But in order to do that, your RME interface needs to be in a so-called class compliant mode. So some of our interfaces, by now, most of our interfaces have a class compliant mode. And with that, you can connect your iPad directly to the RME interface, and then you have really an audio stream. So with the TotalMix FX Remote, you can't record audio on this iPad. This is not possible. On the other hand, it is just without any latency. You just EQ everything, or you set up your submix, and everything is without huge latency, which is great.
Yeah, and a good way to use TotalMix Remote for iPad is if, let's say, I'm a drummer and I have Adrian set up that he's got there, and I go over to the drum set, and I'm no longer sitting at the host computer running my DAW, running TotalMix, but I need to create a headphone mix at my drum kit. So now with the iPad, I can control TotalMix as if I'm Adrian sitting in front of that computer and get my mix. That's one application in a home studio of TotalMix for iPad. Or if you have a vocal booth, you almost can use your TotalMix Remote like a personal monitoring system. So in a way, with all of the busing and routing in TotalMix and using TotalMix Remote, you almost have a personal monitoring system built into the RME infrastructure, which is pretty sweet. And but I've used TotalMix for iPad and done recording on the iPad, and it's like using TotalMix on a computer. Same thing.
Not only that, but I mean, you're absolutely right. So the remote app is available for Mac, PC, and iOS, meaning you can have like your control computer or some of these different settings. And the great thing about this is because of course, when you have more clients in that, and you can have up to 20 different clients running the same TotalMix FX session, is that you can allow or you can have rights to every client to that TotalMix FX session. So maybe you just want to have the vocalist allowing to add more or less reverb to the vocal sound or to its headphone, then you can just allow that. So not every musician or client in that TotalMix FX session needs to have all the rights for that. So that's really cool. So no one can interfere with your session.
I smell another video in your future.
I already did one.
Well, yeah, you just went into greater detail there.
Yeah, you have right. Yeah.
Want to thank everyone for who participated in this. All our great artists, and Adam Barber for making the time. Adrian, we know it's late where you are, so I want to thank you again. We will be doing more of these. In fact, I want to encourage everybody to, if you're at syntax.com or the Syntax YouTube channel, please follow us and ring the bell. So when we do this again, you'll be notified. And for those of you that got here through the RMEAudio.com and RME YouTube channel, same thing. Ring the bell and follow us, because we will be doing these streams much the same way we did today. So I can't thank you again.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you RME USA for making this happen. This was a great event, and thanks to the chat. To see this community, I mean, we have been not on the road for over a year now, and to see some of those people in the chat, that was a pure blessing for me. Really made my day. So anytime I can be back with you guys, I will do that.
Yeah, everyone, thanks again. Be safe. Have a great weekend, and until